In a world transformed after a million-year slumber, Immortal King Li Muxuan awakens to discover he has become the vessel for the Earth's core. Using his ancient techniques risks causing a cataclysmic event, leaving Li Muxuan torn between breaking free or remaining captive to the planet he once protected. The fate of the world hangs in the balance as captor and captive blur in this electrifying saga. The sky was dark and the sound of thunder clapped with monstrous power across the expanse of Wu Mountain. Deep within the recesses of the range, a man in a crypt was getting up from an extravagant jade coffin. Bro looks majestic as hell. The man wore exquisite traditional clothing adorned with precious metals. He had extraordinarily gorgeous features and lustrous long hair. He was none other than Li Muxuan, the Xuan Tian sect leader, an immortal king. He remembered his fight against the evil forces and monsters beyond human comprehension. Along with the members of his prestigious sect, they crushed these evil spirits that dared to invade the Xuanyan continent. He embodied the indomitable spirit of the blade as he flew freely through space and fought in countless bloody battles over the millennia. He fought against foreign demons for countless years, and only when the stars darkened and the continent was destroyed could the evil spirits be completely vanquished. With his mythical sword in hand, he single-handedly ended the war for the sake of the whole continent. After the battle subsided, immortal Luoxia and immortal sovereign Baidong let the body of the immortal king merge with the core of the Xuanyan continent itself to save the flickering life force of the immortal king. He was gently laid down into the magical jade coffin. In the middle of the sect members and his fellow immortal cultivators, the coffin was lowered deep into the land. They had truly saved Li Muxuan from certain death. As he climbed up and out of the crypt, he had no clue just how many years he had been under. With a strong push of the tightly sealed door, the light of the outside world warmly greeted him. He took a deep breath for the first time in however many years, and a smile appeared on his lips. The breath he took felt supremely comfortable. It seemed that after defeating the evil spirits back then, the spiritual energy of the Xuanyan continent itself had returned to its peak state. Judging by the concentration of this spiritual energy, his trusted subordinates Baidong and Luoxia should have made great strides forward. It might have become immortal kings themselves. Along the way to his crypt, there seemed to be a tourist group passing through. They were being informed that there was an immortal master's residence in the Wu Mountain scenic area. It was also said that the master of this residence was a corpse. The corpse was said to be somewhere around this mountain, and whoever could find it would be able to form a great relationship with an immortal. One of the tourists complained that he didn't know whether Xuanyan was big or not, but he just wanted to know how much longer he had to climb since he was almost dying. Since they were almost done, the tour guide proposed a short break. Li Muxuan looked at the tourists and assessed that there wasn't even a single cultivator in this group. He lamented that at such a young age, with such poor physical fitness, it was such a waste of abundant Rei Qi to be panting so heavily after climbing a mountain. Did he just call almost all of us out? Suddenly, a tourist drew everyone's attention to a person standing dangerously close to the edge of a cliff. The sickly-looking young man standing at the edge of the cliff was a 19-year-old freshman at Lujing University named Ling Feng. The tourists called out to him to step away from the edge and not to do whatever he was thinking of doing. Of course, there was someone unnecessarily commenting that this was all just a stunt for grandstanding. Suddenly, Ling Feng jumped off the high place, heading towards a grim end. The person who made the unnecessary comment immediately tried to deflect blame. Li Muxuan knew that people who took their own lives could not enter reincarnation. He remarked that meeting an immortal like him should be considered a blessing for this young man as he made his move. He jumped off from where he was standing and gestured to the falling Ling Feng to move mid-air. He tried to step off the air like he had always done. He was surprised when he realized that something was terribly wrong. It seemed like he could not use his abilities like he used to before, and those abilities included flight. The tourists were shocked as they questioned whether someone else had jumped down. They thought it would be better for everyone to disperse quickly because this scenic spot seemed evil. Ling Feng and Li Muxuan landed on the ground, leaving a massive impact. The immortal king questioned what was wrong with him, that he couldn't even fly in the air like he used to. He looked at his body and felt something unusual happening. He immediately decided to get to the bottom of this and entered the small world inside of him. As soon as he materialized, he was greeted by the core of the continent, undergoing a violent and chaotic scene. Violent waves and fearsome heat emanated all over the place. Sinister air and dangerous terrains littered the place. Massive volcanic eruptions burned the ground as lava slowly devoured everything. The 3,000 small worlds were all destroyed, causing his immortal body to be damaged. His cultivation level fell to the level of a mere mortal's chi training. No wonder he couldn't even fly. The liquid spiritual energy had gathered into the sea. It was too terrifying to forcibly use his spiritual power. Once this sea was ignited, it would be enough to destroy the whole world a dozen times over. He materialized into a different small world, and fortunately, this one had not been destroyed yet. He also teleported the body of the young man who fell off the cliff with him. Although he could not save him, it was fate that the two of them met. Now that he had fallen to the Qi training state, he could not revive this man. But in this small world, he could keep Ling Feng's body and spirit intact. When Li Muxuan recovered his peak power, he would revive this young man. While he was at it, he decided to use a soul-searching technique to see what happened while he was sleeping. Li Muxuan saw that the great Yu ruled the water. He witnessed the construction of the pharaoh's tomb. He watched God's suffering. He perceived the atrocities of war and all the ills of the modern-day Earth. Did he just watch the highlight reel of the world's entire history? It turned out that this kid had suffered from an illness and didn't want to hurt his family, so he took the extreme route. The transformation of the world while he was slumbering for 1,000,000 years was drastic. When he opened his eyes, the Xuanyan continent did not exist anymore. It had become the blue planet it is today, and all his old friends were gone. Human beings had long forgotten how to cultivate immortals. No wonder this world was so rich in spiritual energy. The forests, mountains, oceans, and spiritual veins were constantly nurturing spiritual energy. The core of the continent had the function of regulating spiritual energy. It was estimated that the spiritual energy was being poured into his small world for fear that the Earth's spiritual energy would overflow and cause a large-scale spiritual explosion. It seemed that because of this continent core, he was able to survive certain death. Now, it was also because of it that he had fallen from the majestic Immortal King level into the mortal realm. Now, he couldn't even do something as simple as flying. Misfortunes depended on blessings, and blessings depended on misfortunes. Uniformed officers rushed towards the mountains, searching for the two people who had jumped off the cliff. They needed to see if there were any survivors. As they eagerly searched, someone gracefully passed by them. One of the officers noticed that the man who passed by resembled the one who had jumped in the video. He was even wearing the same clothes. They found this ridiculous, as it would be impossible for nothing to happen to the man after falling from such a high place. Besides, it was normal for young people to wear traditional clothes nowadays. At the peak of Wu Mountain lies the prestigious Immortal Master's residence. An elder was explaining that the Xi'anxi residence has a long history. It started with the first generation of Xi'anxi in the Western Han Dynasty, and it has lasted for more than 2,000 years now. It is the oldest Taoist ancestral land in the country. A young apprentice barged into the temple, yelling to his master that something serious has happened. The elder, He Yunfan, warned the young apprentice, Qiao Guan, that people of his generation are most afraid of impatience. He lectured his disciple not to be impatient when something happens, especially when they have distinguished guests over. But the young man insisted that something urgent just happened. He whispered that just now, two people jumped off a cliff on this very mountain. He Dunfin went into emergency mode, blaming his apprentice for not telling him sooner. The young man had been waiting at the door, trying to practice his patience for quite some time now. Infuriated, the elder reiterated that there are priorities in everything. This pig-headed apprentice of his needs to know when to adapt properly. He went to the side of the distinguished guests and apologized, as there was something that happened on the mountain that he must address first. It seems like the cliff jumping video has already been uploaded to the internet. Everyone is already deeming their Wu Mountain as evil. It's already bad enough to be associated with one tragedy, let alone two. This happened even after finally picking up customers who were willing to invest. This is a very serious matter. Halfway through the video, He Yunfan became wide-eyed with shock. He trembled as he recognized the man on the screen. He eagerly asked if this video is not faked in any way at all, and his apprentice confirmed its authenticity as he was personally nearby at the scene. It seems like after many years, the master had finally arrived. He asked Qiao Guan if he still remembers the story. He told him about the origin of the Immortal Master's residence when he entered the sect. He could not possibly forget that story. His master made it up for the tour guides at the beginning. They had been saying that an immortal was buried deep in Wu Mountain, and the Immortal Master's residence has been guarding the tomb for generations. He Yunfan did not make up this story at all. It was passed down to him. Just like the other successors of the Immortal Master's residence, his apprentice thinks that his master has been deceived big time. He blamed himself for not performing very well recently, and the mental pressure of running the place has been too high. He proposed to take his master down the mountain to relax. With a quick smack on the head, he lectured his student that if he only knows how to play all day long, he will become trash later. He genuinely asked his apprentice why he would choose to guard Wu Mountain all this time instead of anything else. Xiao Guang thinks it's all about the money, and his master immediately ignored him. He solemnly told a story that begins with a portrait. When his master passed this painting to him, he was told that this was the true treasure of the immortal master's residence. Back then, he was young and energetic, and he did not believe his master at all. He tried to burn that portrait with fire, but the fire broke out and swallowed his master Yu Wei Xi'an's residence. His master was killed, and most of his butt was almost burned away. He took his apprentice to see the secret room of the immortal master's residence. He looked at the video and the portrait side by side. The man on the phone and the painting undoubtedly look alike. Xiao Guang thinks that this might just be a coincidence, but the old man insists that with the same clothes and hairstyle, that cannot be a coincidence at all. Besides, he had never shown this painting to any outsiders. If the legend is true, then the opportunity for the immortal master's residence has finally come. They must move quickly. The young apprentice thinks that this was a bust, as the man just jumped off a cliff. They might just be trying to meet with a corpse. Li Muxuan solemnly stood on a bridge surrounded by greenery. He threw a stone with a fluid motion. He determined that a pond of water is trapped up and down in this spot. The heavenly Tao is trapped, and the world is drastically different. As soon as he assessed that, the sky directly above him darkened as the wrath of thunder formed. It struck a tree right beside him and burned it into cinders instantly. A malevolent eye of godly proportions broke through the darkness of the sky and stared right at him. The godly being emanating from the whole sky proudly introduced itself as the heavenly Tao itself. It deemed Li Muxuan as someone who should not exist. He looked directly at the overwhelming heavenly Tao and stated that if it wants to fight, it needs to come at him directly. Bro has beef with the heavenly Tao itself. That's cool as hell. Hearing the pride and determination behind his voice, the sky cleared up and the heavenly Tao dissipated. This world has become way too abnormal. The heavenly Tao seems to be covered by some kind of odd substance, and human beings have completely forgotten the way to cultivate immortality. There seems to be someone leading everything behind the scenes, and humanity is very likely being kept in captivity by some kind of powerful existence. He was puzzled as he tried to make sense of everything happening. It would be easy for him to get back to the peak. If the core of the continent in the small world is forcibly cut off from Earth, the vast amounts of spiritual energy on Earth will be able to escape, and his small world will be released. He'll be able to refine the core of that continent and establish its foundation. He can easily go one step further and achieve his Immortal King status once again. At that time, no matter if it's the heavenly Tao or any other foreign demons, no one would be a match for him. It's just that at the same time, the vast amount of spiritual energy will inevitably trigger a spiritual explosion that will destroy the planet. It is certain that 99% of the living things on Earth will cease to exist, and civilization itself will be erased from the catastrophe. The current world has developed amazing networks and advancements. They have even created various interesting games with their ingenuity. He's going to save the world for the sake of mobile games, respect. Humanity has even gone as far as inventing this amazing portable communication device. It would be a pity if such a civilization were to be destroyed just like that. Back then, he fought against foreign evil spirits for the sake of the Xuanyan continent for countless years. But now that he has just woken up, he must immediately protect this Earth. Being an immortal king really is a tiring job. Maybe there's another way for him to get back to his peak. He had already embarked on the journey of cultivating immortality once, after all. The first thing he cultivated was his natal technique using the Xuan Tian Qi training technique. It not only has the effect of quickly absorbing spiritual energy, but also laid the roots of the attributes of his techniques. But under the effects of the continent's core, the spiritual energy of the Earth and the spiritual energy in his own small world have integrated into one, matching their attributes. He opened a small dimensional space and called out Xin Yanjing to help him calculate the feasibility of his speculations. The magical mirror calculated that 100 cultivators on Earth must reach the Qi training stage so he can break through the Qi training stage himself. The same goes for the foundation building stage. It is the same case for breaking through the golden core stage. The magical mirror, Shen Yanjing, continued its calculation of cultivation and came up with the figure that there are currently no Qi cultivators in the whole world. He stored Shen Yanjing, and he was pleased that the technique seems feasible. In the beginning, only 100 Qi cultivators are needed, and that is easy. It's just that the succeeding realms would be highly troublesome. The higher the realm, the more difficult it is to achieve, and he needs 100 cultivators to reach the ascension stage. This is not an easy task even in the most glorious periods of the Xuanyan continent. Not to mention the current situation of cultivation on Earth. Everything must be started from scratch. But no matter how hard it is, Li Muxuan will persevere. Back then, he was able to turn back the desperate situation like the invasion of evil spirits. This is just another task for him. It's a long way to go, so he just must aim for 100 people to cultivate chi first. He's about to casually start the golden age of immortality again. With the snap of a finger, he found the perfect place to start his new mission. No matter which era, young people's learning and accepting abilities are always the strongest. If he wants to change the world, he must first change the young people. As he was about to take his leave, a desperate voice called out, begging him to stay. Elder He Yunfan and his apprentice ran all over the mountain looking for him. He asked the pair if they know him. He Yunfan brought the painting out and proudly stated that they have guarded the Immortal Master's residence for generations, waiting for him to wake up. Scanning the painting, it really was depicting him. At the corner, it was signed by Luo Shi's child. It seems like that woman was still willful. To make the portrait immortal, she went as far as refining a small world of her own into it. It has really been 1,000,000 years since he saw those people. Bai Dong and Luo Xie should be gone now. Otherwise, humanity would not have ended up like this. The duo got on their knees and begged the Immortal Master to let them follow him around in servitude. Li Muxuan was just about to let people cultivate, and he immediately found two. This is a good start. It's just a pity that their spiritual roots are poor. Foundation building should be their upper limit, and alchemy is non-existent in this time. They could have been accepted as his personal disciples. But this old Taoist priest looks like an immortal. It's feasible for this guy to stand at the forefront and promote the cultivation technique. Bro has that cult leader build. He brought out a manual and informed the duo that he does not like being followed. He granted them the Xuan Tian Chi training technique and tasked them to vigorously publicize this manual after they cultivate it. After that, Li Muxuan will examine if their propaganda is effective and then decide if they are worthy of the succeeding stages. The elder Taoist priest humbly asked him to stay at the Immortal Master's residence, but he has someplace else to go. He asked the two to send him to Lujing University first. The apprentice told the Immortal Master that it would be faster if he just flew directly to the university. He Yunfan smacked his impertinent disciple for being ostentatious. In his mind, the Immortal Master simply wants to enter the world and experience the world. He proposed using the car from the residence. Hearing the two argue, he decided not to tell them that he can't even fly right now. He doesn't even know where Lujing University is. The luxurious car belonging to He Yunfan leisurely drove through Lujing City. The master and disciple duo sat at the front, while the Immortal King casually took in the scenery from the backseat. He quietly observed everything along the way, taking in the sight of the tall, high-rise buildings. While he appreciated their height and appearance, he found them a bit square and reminiscent of a prison. A few minutes in modern society, and he had already picked it apart. The bustling city greeted the recently awakened Immortal King with its stoplights and pedestrian lines. Since he was still unfamiliar with how things worked, He Yunfan suggested to his Immortal Master that he should change his clothes first if he wanted to experience university life. As he currently appeared, he stood out too much. The eager elder had also brought some school supplies for him. It seemed to be the beginning of the school year at Lujing University as they welcomed new students. Finally, they arrived at their destination. The Immortal King Li Muxuan got out of the car, dressed casually like a fashionable freshman university student. He Yunfan humbly offered his Immortal Master the essential items he would need for university. The bag was filled with a cell phone, laptop, tablets, and everything else. He even offered to assist with the enrollment process, but Li Muxuan preferred to be dropped off there. The elder had already arranged everything so that he and his disciple could assist their master with just a single call. The phone was also linked to his bank accounts, so money wouldn't be an issue. I want an infinite money glitch too. In exchange, Li Muxuan handed him the painting back. He revealed that it was a magical tool, and he had already activated it for them. If they encountered any danger, they just needed to pour their energy into the painting to ensure their safety. The elder and disciple duo humbly bowed and thanked the Immortal Master for giving them such an invaluable treasure. After getting back into the car, Qiao Guang addressed He Yunfan with seriousness. Since they had just met the Immortal Master, they hadn't even seen his abilities yet. Qiao Guang worried that they were too hasty in giving him everything immediately. In his experienced and wise eyes, He Yunfan could see just how terrifying their Immortal Master truly was. Every gesture and movement he made contained the profound principles of the universe. He would be willing to give up all his worldly possessions for this man. The students of Lujing University were in awe as they watched this new student with such great temperament walk by. It felt as though they were falling under a spell just by looking at him. Bro has that otherworldly riz. Li Muxuan went straight to the registration office for computer science to enroll. Inside, Zhang Nai, the counselor, and Li Liang, a sophomore, were present. Zhang Nai questioned him about bringing a document with a photo that didn't match his appearance. Using his ability to speak words that accorded with the truth, he urged the counselor to take another look. As the Earth's core was connected to the body of the Immortal King, Li Muxuan, he was now the embodiment of Earth's will itself. His words contained the will of the Earth, and it would be impossible for normal people to resist what he said. The counselor changed her tone and let him in without any problem. He is just a walking cheat code. For real. She instructed Gao Liang to take Li Muxuan to the student dormitory to complete the registration. When asked about his luggage, he simply responded that he had only brought the single bag prepared by He Yunfan. Gao Liang remarked that having money was great, as Li Muxuan could just go in and buy everything on campus, unlike ordinary working-class people who had to tighten their belts just to pay tuition fees. As they walked leisurely through the campus, they passed by Han Ziqing, a junior at the university. This woman caught Li Muxuan's attention, and he quietly muttered the name Ling Shi. He sensed the moon's spiritual root from the gorgeous woman. Gao Liang advised him to give up the idea of pursuing her, no matter how handsome he was. This piqued his curiosity even more. Potential waifu number 1 has been detected. It seemed that she was not only the belle of Lujing University, but also the only daughter of the richest man in Lujing City. Countless people were already pursuing her. Even the basketball prince, Jiang Tianhao, had turned down invitations from the world's top clubs to pursue the one and only Han Ziqing of Lujing University. How will this affect Lebron's legacy? What caught Li Muxuan's attention was the resemblance the lady had with the top female disciple of the Xuan Tian sect, Ling Shi. The moon's spiritual root was possessed solely by her, making it extremely rare even in the golden age of cultivation. With the same appearance and type of spiritual root, he started to seriously consider the idea of reincarnation. Whether that was the case or not was not important. What mattered was restoring his cultivation swiftly. Although the spread of his techniques would begin with his mentor-disciple relationship with He Yunfan, it would only work in the lower realms. It would be a temporary solution to his urgent situation. To reach a higher level, it was necessary to find truly talented individuals as his direct disciples, whom he could train and personally elevate to a higher realm. This required true talent. This woman was one of the most suitable candidates for his quest. However, he was well aware that when it came to taking on disciples, one must proceed slowly and not be too hasty. Bro's going to play the long game. He couldn't scare away his designated disciple just yet. As they passed each other, Han Ziqing also looked back with curiosity. When asked if she was interested in the new student, she simply responded that she felt like she had seen him somewhere before. The duo finally arrived in front of the designated multi-level student dormitory of the university. They reached Unit 315, and the student assistant bid him farewell, wishing him a good time at the school. Since he registered late, his dormitory was combined with students from other majors. Luo Yang, a sports major, quietly lifted weights in one corner, shirtless. Liu Hongquan, a Chinese language and literature major, diligently read through his book. Zhang Zihao, a techie computer science major, typed away at his computer. Seeing that everyone was present, Luo Yang put down his weights and proposed that he would take on the role of dormitory leader. This dude really thinks he's that guy. He asked if anyone objected, but no one seemed interested in him at all. If there were no objections, he would take their silence as agreement. It has now been 2 months since Li Muxuan entered Lujing University. Multiple tall stacks of books lay neatly in front of him in the library. After 2 months of studying, he finally had a rough understanding of this world. He found out that this is a world mainly developed through advancements in various fields of science and technology. As for religions, there have been way too many of them, but Taoism has been in continuous decline. Humans no longer resist aging, illness, and death, nor do they pursue the path of defying fate, but instead, they accept it. In history, there have also been many figures that have impressed him thoroughly. There was a person who rode a cow and had no spiritual power at all, but his understanding of the world was no less than that of an immortal king. There was also an academic who proposed the idea of transcending oneself to unleash unlimited potential, a perspective like that of cultivators. In his era, every cultivator shared this unruly idea. Unfortunately, the will of the heavens has been obscured. Otherwise, there would have been 2 more immortal kings in this world. Not far from his seat, Han Ziqing was seated casually with her roommate Zhang Zuling, a multimedia major. Even though she was just sitting and reading quietly, she exuded a different and elegant air around her. Every single man in the library was aware of her presence. They regarded her as a true goddess in the university. The bored Zhang Ziling urged the belle of the university to get out of the library to go shopping out of boredom. Since she came to the library, more and more people have come here to study as well, but it seems like most of them came for her and not for the books. Her roommate continued to badger her while reading to go shopping and buy some clothes instead. While reading the book in her hand, it seemed like the goddess was also distracted by someone else not far from her. One guy even had the audacity to think that she was interested in him. Zhang Ziling was quick to notice that her roommate was distracted as she continued bugging her. She noticed that she was looking at the guy quietly reading on the other side of the library. Even though this younger schoolmate of theirs is very charming and handsome, Zhang Ziling thinks that he's just another typical bookworm. Compared to her brother Zhang Hao, there's a huge gap. Ham Ziqing finally decided to stand up and walk over towards Li Muxuan's direction. Suddenly, she felt a quick stinging pain in her head. With no clue what was going on and how fast it happened, she started to fall. Zhang Ziling called out in genuine concern, but a strong and firm hand was already preparing to break her fall. With a gentle catch, Li Muxuan and the goddess of the university tenderly looked into each other's eyes. He's just too smooth with it. That's my goat right there. He firmly told her not to move just yet and to give him her hand as Han Ziqing blushed profusely in the arms of the man holding her softly. With beet-red cheeks, she slowly raised her hand towards Li Muxuan. He grabbed onto it and scanned her veins. It seemed like her spiritual energy was turning into liquid, leading to a severe meridian disorder. Every man in the library looked on in regret as all of them would love to be in Li Muxuan's position right about now. He truly had been asleep for too long that he almost forgot about this matter. The moon's spiritual root is the spiritual root of heaven and earth. It converts spiritual energy into a dense liquid form automatically. Without special cultivation techniques, a mortal body would not be able to withstand too much of this liquid. It wouldn't be long before her body becomes eroded and completely destroyed by the liquid, so he gently siphoned off some of it from her arms. He asked her if she felt more comfortable now, and all she had as a response was how did he do it. The annoying Zhang Ziling swiftly rushed to her sister Qing's side, yelling at the man to get his dirty hands off her roommate. Ignoring the background noise, he told the goddess of the university to go rest for now and that she should come and find him when she's feeling better. The irritating roommate continued to be loud and berate Li Muxuan for being impudent in her eyes. But Han Ziqing herself resembled an obedient and flustered young girl as she timidly agreed to looking for him when she feels better. Seeing the untouchable goddess behaving like this completely broke Zhang Ziling. She continued to badger her roommate as the both of them exited the library. He looked at them, departing with a nonchalant expression on his face. There were no signs of cultivation in her body, so based on reason, if no one helps her remove the spiritual liquid, she should not have survived beyond childhood. There is something going on here. The men inside the library regarded him as enemy number one for making a move on their goddess in their eyes. They intended to let the world know. The dormitory room door opened as Li Muxuan finally decided to turn in for the day when his phone started to ring. It seemed like the duo had finally reached the initial stages of chi refining. They could now float on water and leap into the clouds. They planned to vigorously promote the cultivation technique to the masses via live streaming. He thought that live streaming was a really good idea. Human technology is indeed unique in many ways. He signed up for the streaming site with a nickname, Stealing Half a Day of Leisure. He Yunfeng had 210,000 viewers at his stream as he stood still on the water. Most of the audience naturally thought that it was just a trick. Old man is about to become a live streaming god. Up next, his disciple would be performing the true Tianzong technique for everyone. Xiao Guang casually walked through a steep cliff, with his hands behind his back as the audience continued to question its legitimacy. They cacked it off with him running through the vertical surface as if it was nothing. He took Naruto running to a different level. He Yunfeng encouraged the audience to click the link for their complete cultivation technique, with the promise that they were not lying. Under the comment section, people naturally kept on commenting that this was some kind of scheme. Li Muxuan personally naively commented that maybe this was a real performance after all, trying to convince the people. A user named Chen Nunbai replied to him, berating him for being a little kid who falls for the simplest tricks, roasting him for believing in ghosts and gods in the 21st century. With annoyance plastered on his face, he tried to reason with the user. Oh no, he's arguing with strangers on the internet. But the guy was a loud and proud keyboard warrior his whole life. He did not intend to start listening to reason now. This completely left the Immortal King speechless. Li Muxuan furiously typed that he would remember the user known as Chen Nunbai. Chen Nunbai did not give a freak. He taunted the Immortal King to find him along the network cables if he could. Li Muxuan gripped his phone with a force that nearly crushed it in rage. Outside, people noticed the sky suddenly turning black, and they also felt a short earthquake occurring. He stared at the username of the keyboard warrior. This guy better make sure that the Immortal King never finds him. Otherwise, he would give him a satisfactory answer to his life. On November 2, the Earth was almost destroyed between Li Muxuan's palms. Internet trolls would really bring the death of humanity eventually. The Wu Mountain duo has been gaining a lot of traction lately. They have become a hot topic among the public. Today, it seems that Yun Feng is challenging the boxing king, Terry. The majority of people think that the old man will get knocked out. Regardless, people are expecting a good show and have tuned into the live broadcast. Neither of the two fighters is wearing gloves, which has earned criticism from viewers for being reckless just for views. This live stream looks fire, not gonna lie. The fight starts, and the boxing king moves with impressive precision and speed. He throws a nasty right straight, but the old man effortlessly dodges to the side. In return, he counters with a casual punch that wrecks the boxing king's insides, causing him to throw up blood. The counterpunch is so powerful that it destroys the ropes of the ring and even the building's pillar with just the impact. After witnessing the fighter get knocked out cold in 1 second, the viewers begin to doubt the authenticity of the live stream. Yun Feng formally introduces himself and the profound martial arts technique that he practices. He leaves the link for the complete version of the Xuan Tian Qi training technique for the viewers to see and practice. It seems like there are a decent number of people who are being cured and improved by the manual already. That's when the live broadcast gets cut off for violating the rules. Back at the Lujing dorm, Zhang Zihao types away at his computer as usual. It seems like he's been deep into hacking, as he successfully downloads a file. Fortunately, he downloads what he needs before it gets wiped off the entire internet. He calls out to his dormmates, including Li Muxuan, as he has some shocking news to share with them. Liu Hongquan puts his book aside to see what the fuss is all about. The techie CS major asks him if he has seen the videos of the master and disciple from Wu Mountain. He thinks that those were just clowns trying to get attention. With a sip of his soda, he divulges the important news. He keeps beating around the bush, and Liu Hongquan is starting to lose interest and get annoyed. The skeptical young man finds it natural that the live streams of the duo have been getting shut down for faking it. The nerdy hacker man urges him not to jump to conclusions so fast. The disappearance of the duo's content has been extremely strange. Just now, he used a server vulnerability to hack the live streaming site and retrieve a few of the live streamed clips. He also carefully analyzed them frame by frame. After watching them, he is shocked that there's a big possibility that the master and disciple are not faking anything at all. It's the opposite of being caught in 4K. Liu Hongquan is in disbelief. If this is true, the Wu Mountain duo would be beyond mortal beings. Zhang Zihao has also downloaded the complete Xuan Tian Qi training technique before it got wiped off the entire network, but his dorm mate is still skeptical. Suddenly, Li Muxuan receives a notification on his phone. It's Yun Feng informing him of the problems with the live stream due to people mass reporting them. He urges them not to worry and to just take their time. He goes into his core and analyzes the current situation of his mission's progress. It seems that they have already produced 87 practicing Qi cultivators through the efficiency of the live broadcast promotion. An outstanding leader on Earth once said, "A single spark can start a prairie fire." And it seems that the spark of cultivating immortality has already been ignited, and it will not be easy to extinguish it at this point. Throughout human history, humans have had an ultimate dream, the dream to obtain the art of longevity and the ability to maintain youth. Even with advancements in technology, humans have already accepted the cycle of birth, aging, illness, and inevitable death. But no one can resist the temptation of immortality. A phone on the table starts to ring vigorously. It seems that something happened to the last member of the dormitory, Lu Ouyang. He is currently in the hospital. The teacher has informed them that he had an accident while playing basketball and is currently undergoing surgery at the hospital. Bro is not going to the NBA. The dorm roommates immediately rush to the hospital to check on their friend, who is undergoing an emergency surgical procedure. The doctor comes out, and they introduce themselves as Luo Yang's dormmates. He informs them that the surgery was very successful, and the patient is not in any danger of losing his life. However, his spinal cord injury may likely lead to lower limb paralysis. Luo Yang should be mentally prepared for a long period of rehabilitation. Sitting at the hospital bed, he tries to smile and cheer up his visiting friends, as if being paralyzed is no big deal. He plans to switch majors and continue studying from now on. They cheer up their self-proclaimed dorm leader by assuring him that the god is back. Li Muxuan assesses his cheerful and resilient personality. He is a good seedling. It's too bad he only has mortal roots. Otherwise, he would have been a possible disciple. But taking a closer look, something feels wrong. He looks closely at Luo Yang's condition and notices a tiny and imperceptible needle lodged in his spinal area. With the covered in swift motion, he dislodges the tiny needle and takes it in his hands. Suddenly, from being paralyzed from the waist down, Luo Yang starts to gain control of his toes again. Even though he's still wearing a cast, he feels like he is 100% fine and can move again. Even the doctor finds it puzzling that he became okay just like that. He just brushes it off as misdiagnosing a patient. Only Li Muxuan knows the truth behind this magical weapon, the yin needle. Used by Foundation establishment cultivators, it is a fatal hidden weapon for ordinary people. He easily snaps it off. Paralysis or death is the only aim of this sinister needle. With Han Jiqing's case of the spiritual moon root, the deliberate ban on He Yunfan's efforts in spreading cultivation, and now Luo Yang getting hit by a yin needle while simply playing basketball, something fishy is going on. He asks his doormate how exactly he got hurt to get to the bottom of this. At the time of the incident, he was being praised for being amazing despite being just a freshman. His jumping ability was so impressive that he managed to block Zhang Hao. But just when he was about to block him for the second time, it suddenly happened. After jumping up, he lost all feeling in his lower body and fell to the ground unconscious. That's a different kind of foul, bro. When he woke up, he was already lying down in the hospital with a paralyzed leg. The name Zhang Hao rings familiar in Li Muxuan's ears. The hacker man finds it unbelievable that his brother Li doesn't instantly know who the man is after being in school for so long. It seems that this Zhang Hao is famous. A mysterious figure can be seen flying in the dark sky, illuminated by the light of the full moon above the Immortal Master's residence at Wu Mountain. He Yunfan evaluated that this person is a true blue immortal with the ability of real flight. He respectfully bowed and addressed the person as his senior, while asking why he came in the middle of the night. The immortal with a red scarf called the master and disciple duo thieves as he interrogated them about where they got their cultivation technique from. He Yunfan remained truthful, stating that the technique was given to them by an immortal not too long ago. It seems like only the immortals Zhang family and the Ma family have a complete cultivation technique in this world. If this leak was a deliberate action by the Ma family, his Zhang family would naturally have to make a move and retaliate. With a sinister expression, he questioned the people below where the immortal they just mentioned is currently located. He Yunfan, fiercely loyal to his master, denied having any more information regarding the immortal after their fleeting encounter. The man above emanated overwhelming energy with his disdainful look as he suspected that He Yunfan was withholding information from him. He exerted a spiritual energy pressure that shook the duo to their core. The elder was steadfast in insisting that they really do not know the location of the immortal Li Muxuan. He mocked the duo below for refusing a toast, only to be forced to drink a forfeit by his forceful hands. Once he catches them with his massive palm coming down from the heavens, there will be hundreds of ways to make them confess properly. The magical palm crashed down and destroyed everything in its path as if it were nothing. As the energy dissipated, the entirety of the Immortal Master's residence was reduced to scraps of destruction. But it seems like the Master and Disciple duo surprisingly managed to run away in time, escaping the Immortal wearing a red scarf. That person really is a terrifying foe. Luckily, He Yunfan had some techniques up his sleeve. Otherwise, an ordinary person would have been turned to ash by now. Xiao Guan cannot understand why they had to offend such a menacing individual instead of just spilling the beans. But the wise elder is certain that the man above them would not spare them, regardless of whether they confess or not. Moreover, as disciples who have already joined the Immortal Master's sect, they shall not commit the shameless act of betrayal. It seems like this sleazy master of his has truly changed and become more serious recently. With rage in his eyes, the Immortal Cultivator would not allow them to escape, even if they hide in a secret room. He can see through the debris and below the ground to locate the duo hiding out in the room. He Yunfan immediately sensed that they were in big trouble, as the person above just detected them. He swiftly grabbed the immortal painting, praising his immortal master for looking out for them with the foresight of leaving the magical portrait for times like this. He imbued his spiritual energy into the magic tool, and it lit up with a bright light. The raging immortal finished clearing up the debris and tearing down the ground itself to finally locate the duo, but he was too late as he only caught a glimpse of a flash. It was a spatial artifact. The immortal was certain that this was the Ma family's doing, and they spared no expense, but it won't be easy to escape his grasp. He left a mark on the two, so even if they run to the ends of the earth, he will track them down. It was now my time at the hospital. Hacker Man is explaining to Li Muxuan that Jiang Hao was the most promising basketball player in the history of ZBA. He's also skilled in track and field. He rejected top clubs just to pursue Han Ziqing. But this Zhang Zihao's investigation has gone deeper than that. He found some strange things surrounding this young man. Almost all the athletes who competed with him at the same time had met a terrible fate. After he arrived at the university, he had a conflict with the basketball team captain, and shortly after, news of the captain's hands being broken by Jiang Hao spread. Also, during high school, Jiang Hao's track and field competitor broke a foot during the competition, which ended his career. In short, this man is a very dangerous presence. Anyone who opposes or outshines him befalls a grim accident. Bro was on the wrong sports. He should just go fight in USC or something. You really cannot judge a book by its cover. He looks so sunny on the outside, but his heart is vicious. They started to think that their roommate's injuries might be linked to this as well. Li Muxuan is certain that one incident can be called an accident, but multiple incidents form a pattern. It is likely that the yin meal came from Jiang Hao's hands. He might also be related to the people who helped with Han Ziqing's condition. Suddenly, he felt something trigger from a distance. He sensed that the master and disciple have already used the spatial artifact. He bade farewell to his roommates as he has something urgent that he needs to do. Xiao Guang limped off while throwing up continuously. This spatial travel thing is far too scary for him. He swore to never try it again, even if he gets beaten to death. He started to notice a familiar figure standing not far from them. He got on his knees and begged the immortal master to please save his master. After checking Yunfan's condition, he ascertained that it's not a big deal. He just depleted his spiritual power and will be fine with a few days of rest. He went on to question just what in the world happened and how did the old man get injured. Xiao Guang explained the details of what happened in the Wu Mountain. He emphasized that they did not spill any information at all, and in the end, they were saved because of the portrait. It seems like the man they encountered is at least at the Foundation establishment stage if he has the ability of true flight. He praised the duo for working hard. He opened his small world so that they can rest and recuperate in peace for a period of time. Xiao Guang dreaded another spatial travel as they got sucked into the portal to the small world completely. They were transported in the middle of the sky, with a bizarre view of a burning land on one side and a luscious verdant terrain on the other. The young man was speechless at the sight of this place. Li Muxuan warned them to only move around the bamboo forest area and avoid the other regions, otherwise, even he would not be able to help them. They laid down a Yunfan beside the young man who jumped from the cliff of Wuhu Mountain that day. Even though Li Muxuan was not able to save him that day, he vowed to revive him in the future. Xiao Guang was shocked that his immortal master can bring back the dead, but he insisted that the dead cannot be resurrected. This person was just lucky that he got taken to the small world before his soul dissipated. When he recovers his power, he will reassemble this young man's soul. To avoid taking a leave of absence, Lu Ouyang decided to switch from sports specialty to computer science. The dormmates have been very supportive of his every action lately, but he insists on going at it by himself as he does not want to bother his friends. Despite being physically disabled, he has a strong will and is a good candidate for cultivation. If there is a chance in the future, Li Muxuan would help him. Hacker Man has been keeping an eye on the forums that show footage of people who have practiced the publicized cultivation technique. There are people who were crippled and paralyzed but started to walk once again. There are people who have been able to perform inhuman feats to save those in need. It's such an unbelievable sight to see a normal-looking human be more resilient than even a speeding car. The age of superheroes just began. Of course, there are also people who shouldn't have had access to the cultivation technique. It seems like supervillains are spawning too. One prisoner managed to break through the steel bars of a prison as he tanked the efforts of the law enforcement to sedate and capture him. After seeing countless clips of inhuman feats, Hacker Man is now about 80% sure that the publicized Xuan Tian Qi training technique is likely to be legit. The other roommate is still skeptical, but the video evidence on the internet is starting to increase exponentially in number. Lu Ouyang presented the idea of him trying the technique first. If there are any problems, it won't be worse than his current situation. The Immortal King himself chimed in his agreement for them to try the technique. Since everyone wants to try it, Hacker Man wants to give it a shot too. Even with heavy skepticism, Li Muxuan had no choice in the matter. If he could not beat them, he'll just join them. The four roommates sat in a meditative pose as they channeled the cultivation technique. Just cultivating immortality with the boys. No big deal. Li Muxuan quickly attuned to the energy of 5 hearts facing the sky. The dorm room started to become filled with pure and natural magical energy. After becoming an immortal king and gaining a deep understanding of the universe, he developed this technique specifically for the public. The most important thing in cultivating is adapting to the environment of spiritual energy. The spiritual energy in nature is like tides that ebb and flow, and cultivators are like the reef on the shore, their bodies being washed by the tides. They rise to survive and fall to defend. The 2 four-eyed young men were the first to give up as they could not maintain their focus at all while practicing the technique. Cultivating immortality is a cruel thing. Even those who obtain the techniques without a solid foundation would not reap the benefits. Their bodies would not be able to bear the spiritual energy, and those with poor physical conditions would burden their constitutions instead. According to modern science, spiritual roots are also engraved in everyone's DNA. Even if you are an immortal king, it's difficult to modify that. Suddenly, they started to hear the loud rumbling of thunder nearby. It seemed to be coming directly from the dorm leader. Thinking that there was a problem with the technique, they tried to wake up the man. As soon as they touched him, electricity started shooting out as if he was a live wire. As an immortal king, he has times when he also makes mistakes. It seems like Luo Ouyang has turned out to be the owner of a mutated thunder spirit root. The sky darkened, and an ominous air surrounded the dormitory. Li Muxuan knew exactly what this meant. He swiftly got up and ordered the boys not to wake up Luo Ouyang while he dealt with something. The threatening eye of the heavenly Tao spawned once again, this time right above the dormitory. The Eye of Soren is out here doing its part-time job. Li Muxuan faced off against the overwhelming force of nature as it unleashed thunder in the form of raging dragons. Even though he had fallen to the chi refining stage, he still has the body of an immortal king. A mere heavenly thunder is nothing to him. The heavenly Tao continued to intensify its assault against him. It got to the point where it was releasing heavenly thunder the size of a whole building. It was so massive that it resembled a single ray of destructive light. From a fair distance from the dormitory, a wandering 75-year-old golden core stage cultivator watched in awe at the dark sky and the thunderous roar alongside his granddaughter. As the sky cleared up, he explained that not far from them is a powerful person crossing a tribulation. They need to leave this dangerous place quickly. Li Muxuan finally understands why there are so few talented cultivators on Earth nowadays. Anyone with potential has been killed off by this false heavenly Tao. Out of the corner of his eye, he noticed someone watching him from afar. He saw the figure of an old man and a little girl from a distance. He did not expect to see a cultivator in the golden core stage out of nowhere. The old man sensed that Li Muxuan just looked at him and swiftly bolted through the forest with his granddaughter in tow. He calculated that the man on the rooftop is far too terrifying, even more so than the immortals of the Ma family. Li Muxuan knew that anyone who can reach the old man's cultivation level under this heavenly Tao is not ordinary. Maybe he's related to the powers behind the scenes. Back inside the dorm, they discussed the change in the world's order if the Xuan Tian Qi training technique is real. They should continue reading into it. They cannot predict the future situation, but it's never wrong to be prepared. Changing the subject, Li Muxuan has been starting to notice that after spending a few months together, they've been listening to Li Muxuan a lot. They chalk it up to the simple fact that maybe he's just handsome and charismatic. Meanwhile, the dorm leader is starting to emanate a violent and thunderous energy around his body. With a powerful shout, his spiritual energy reached its peak. He stood up without the assistance of his crutch, with his body radiating an unusual and electrifying glow. It seems like he succeeded with the cultivation method. He can feel his legs now with no problems at all. He even felt energy coursing through his body, and he wants to try jumping. After launching himself from the floor, his head went through the ceiling with impressive force. It looks like his legs might be fine, but his brain might not be. He has an all-strength with no intelligence build. While leisurely standing on the rooftop of the dormitory building, Li Muxuan conjured his magical mirror, Tian Yanjing. He watched as the dorm leader of Unit 315 broke through his mortal bounds and set foot into the cultivation world. Bro looks like a buff Pikachu cosplayer. As expected of the Thunder spiritual root, his energy absorption rate is simply terrifying. The Tribulation Lightning really helped too. His clothes started to transform back into his traditional garb, but they had become tattered. As soon as Luo Yang broke through the Qi training stage, the number of Qi cultivators under his wing coincidentally reached 100. The magic mirror congratulated its master and informed him that he would now need to do the same thing for the foundation building stage. Looking at the projection, he was now one step closer to his goal. He was satisfied that he had finally recovered his Qi training level abilities. But the sudden recovery of cultivation level was causing a riot in his inner world. This would be troublesome. His energy was becoming unstable as cracks appeared on his armor. He had no choice but to teleport out of the real world swiftly. Inside his small world, a crack was starting to form in the fabric of its space. It began to get even bigger as pure spiritual energy started to pour out of the cracks. The master and disciple duo inside the small world had no idea what was going on as they trembled in fear. It seemed like the end of the world from the inside, causing He Yunfan to worry about his immortal master's condition. But he convinced himself that this was just a test of their belief in the immortal master. Back on Earth, bizarre phenomena were happening as the instability of the Immortal King's energy continued. The world was now undergoing a precursor to a massive spiritual explosion. Birds were falling out of the sky, and animals were becoming restless all over. A sinister mass of dark clouds was starting to form again, and it felt even more oppressive than when the thunder struck earlier. Every sign pointed to the possible end of the world. Li Muxuan materialized inside his small world and quickly found the crack that was causing chaos everywhere. The duo cried in relief as soon as they saw their immortal master coming in to save the day. He casually wiped his hand, and the cracks in the fabric of space inside the small world were sealed shut. Back in the outside world, the dark skies cleared up, and the bright light of the sun kissed the metropolitan area. People experienced a mix of emotions as they watched the weather turn from good to bad and good again with no explanations at all. Li Muxuan teleported back to the outside world after taking care of the minor hiccup in his breakthrough. He was back to wearing his casual outfit on the dormitory rooftop. His thoughts wandered back to Luo Yang. His potential with the Thunder Spirit root could not be ignored. However, they were still roommates, and he could not reveal his identity for the time being. It was better to let Yunfeng and his disciple take the lead when it came to him for now. The duo was shocked that they were summoned out of the inner world as they quickly descended from midair. Since they had reached the Qi refining stage, they could now use the clouds soaring tower technique, allowing them to walk on the clouds for a period of time. Their immortal master pointed them in the direction of Luo Yang, who had just undergone his breakthrough. They were ordered to use every method at their disposal to make him cultivate. If he had any questions, they must relay them to the immortal master, and he would provide the answers. They knew that they must follow every task that had just been handed to them 100% and do it beautifully. He Yunfan believed that his master was doing this for the good of his disciples. Even though their aptitudes were mediocre, they were still being tasked to take care of a talented person. He believed that this was a warning not to be complacent, as there were always better cultivators than them. It was a reminder to pay attention to the quality and not just the quantity of cultivators. Luo Yang pushed his head out of the ceiling, and the two famous Taoists were already inside their dormitory. The other two students bowed in respect. After getting dressed, they congratulated the young man for his successful advancement in cultivation. He also thanked the duo for making it possible for him to take another step, and he also had a favor to ask them. Before they could even ask the young man, he was already presenting the idea of cultivating together by himself. He Yunfan coolly accepted. His friend asked him if this meant that he wouldn't be staying in school from now on. Luo Yang confirmed that he wasn't planning to continue school for now. Just a moment ago, he had realized who had tried to ruin his life. He recognized that ordinary people couldn't beat Zhang Hao, so he planned to deepen his cultivation for a while. He's going through his own training and revenge arc. The two dormmates lamented the loss of their dorm leader, and they couldn't even practice cultivation themselves. They envied him for being able to embark on the path of cultivation when they didn't even understand what spiritual energy was. While they were down in the dumps, someone threw a coin at them as if they were beggars on the street. After looking up angrily, they realized that it was Li Muxuan casually eating some delicious meat buns, since earlier, this guy had vanished and they couldn't find him. He simply responded that he had meditated for a while. Then he got hungry and bought some food. He also asked his roommates where the self-proclaimed leader was. They informed him that Luo Yang had already left the common people like them behind to go to a different world. He wept, as in the future, Dormitory 315 might only have the three of them left. Everything that had happened recently had been crazy. Until yesterday, Liu Hongquan was just a naive kid, and in less than a day, his worldview had collapsed. Hacker Man planned to keep studying as they couldn't predict the future from now on. But he also planned on joining the Master and Disciple Dugo's group to contribute to the new world. In front of Lujing University Boys' Dormitory, something groundbreaking has been happening. The goddess of Lujing herself patiently stands and waits for someone. She didn't get Li Muxuan's name or contact details, so she plans to wait out front. The sight of this beautiful lady has caused quite a stir among the boys of the dormitory, and she intends to wait a bit longer. The once-in-a-century beauty is starting to cause a commotion as a big crowd of students gathers around her. Every boy is trying to catch a glimpse of her magnificence. From a distance, the boys of Unit 315 see the commotion in front of the dormitory building. It's hard not to become curious after seeing so many people gathered and enamored by something in front of them. Liu Hongquan shoves himself through the gathering crowd out of pure curiosity. That's when he finally catches a glimpse of the famed senior Han standing patiently in front of the boys' quarters. Her expression suddenly brightens up as soon as she sees someone walking through the thick crowd of bystanders. She approaches Li Muxuan and humbly thanks him for helping her in the library a few days ago. He asked her to find him, but she did not have any of his information at all. She also hasn't seen this man in the library these past few days, so she came here with the determination to wait until he shows up. Seeing and hearing their goddess interact with him, the other boys have mixed reactions ranging from admiration to pure hatred. They even go as far as dubbing Li Muxuan as a beast and the first scumbag of Lujing. Han Ziqing's annoying roommate faces the crowd and tries to silence their outrageous notions. The boys of Lujing University admit defeat, watching the unknown man in front of them getting chased by the city's goddess after only meeting once. Since there are too many people here, this is not the right place for them to talk. Li Muxuan suggests that they go to the small forest behind the school where there are fewer people. She blushes at the thought of just the two of them going into the small forest, but she bashfully agrees to his suggestion. I have never seen a man so full of riz before. She catches herself getting entranced and listening to the man without questioning. The annoying roommate butts in once again, calling him names and shielding Han Ziqing. She wants to come with them if they're going to the privacy of the small forest. Han Ziqing tells her to stop messing around and insists that the two of them have something important to discuss together. Li Muxuan's roommates sit in depression in one corner. First, it was the dorm leader abandoning them to cultivate, and now their brother Li is hooking up with Han Ziqing. They feel like they are the designated losers of the group. The small forest is the love sanctuary of the university. The trees are lush, and couples who have dates here often experience indescribable things. Every warm-blooded male within the radius of the forest watches the two go in as they curse Li Muxuan from the bottom of their hearts. The pair walks leisurely inside the verdant forest closely. It seems that since they met at the library, her body has gotten better, and she hasn't had any episodes due to her rare condition. He asks her if she gets chills all over her body to the point of fainting from time to time, and if she dreams of the unusual sight of the moon rising from the sea. This surprises the beautiful lady as she has never told anyone about her dreams. Even the Zhang family doesn't know about it. He reasons that she just has a condition that his old friend also had. He reassures her that his old friend eventually got better. Although they are about the same age, Han Ziqing is starting to notice that this guy speaks like an old man. She was told that her illness is difficult to cure, and even the old man from the Zhang family can only alleviate her symptoms. When she was 5 years old, every medical doctor found nothing wrong with her body. Some alternative practitioners even offered them bizarre methods of cure. But no matter how many doctors they consulted or medicine she took, it was all useless. As she grew older, her condition only worsened. When she has an episode, she feels like thousands of ants are biting her all at once. That was until they met Zhang Liu, the ancestor of the Zhang family, and the 6-year-old Zhang Hao. The mysterious power of the old man was out of this world. It was the first time that she felt like her illness had gotten better. She did not feel the cold or the pain anymore. The ancestor instructed her father to bring her to the Zhang family occasionally to dispel the cold toxins in her body. Her father, Han San Guan, vowed to do whatever he could to repay the mysterious elder. Li Muxuan explains that what she has is not an illness but a great chance for enlightenment, and the Zhang family does not intend to help her at all. He tells her to close her eyes as he directly transmits ancient knowledge of cultivation. He imparts the 7 techniques of the lunar scriptures into her consciousness. He opens her mind to the true meaning of Tao and the mysterious skill of transformation. As soon as he finishes bestowing her with the cultivation method, Han Ziqing becomes flushed as she suddenly feels incredibly hot all over her body. Hold up, are we changing genres right now? But on the outside, a cold energy is starting to form all around them. After activating her spiritual root, Her body sends false signals to her brain due to overcooling. He instructs her to sit down, adjust her breathing, and start practicing the technique. The ground of the small forest becomes swiftly covered with frigid air as it turns into pure ice. Even the couples far from them are starting to feel the sudden drop in temperature. Li Muxuan admires the terrifying power of the moon's spiritual root upon its initial activation. He is certain that if Ling Shi did not fall back then, she would have been an immortal king by now. Outside the small forest, Zhang Yanhu, a chi-refining stage cultivator and Zhang Hao's follower, try to reach out to his boss. Meanwhile, Zhang Hao was under the spotlight as always, with girls and questions swarming him right after landing back home. He finally gets back to his personal space and unhappily answers the call from his subordinate. His underling tells him to check the school's chat group immediately. The photo and news of the handsome first-year student and Han Ziqing going into the small forest by themselves are already spreading like wildfire. Seeing the blushing image of Lu Jing's goddess on his phone, the cool demeanor on his face crumbles, and the real psycho emerges. He intends to come back soon. A couple cluelessly walking around the small forest felt that something was off. As the guy tried to make his move, a spider hanging by its web greeted his lips. What emerged from the depths of the forest was even more wildlife that seemed to be running from something dangerous. On the frozen ground where Li Muxuan and Han Ziqing were standing, they were intruded upon by two familiar faces. It was Zhang Hao and his underling, Zhang Yanhu, wearing serious expressions at the sight of the lady cultivating. They immediately disapprove of the freshman for allegedly being an unregistered cultivator. Li Muxuan refused to play along with the Zhang family's petty rules, which angered the sidekick. Zhang Yanhu channeled an image of a white tiger with his bare fists as he aimed for the mysterious man in front of him. He faced the incarnation of the beast with a confident stance. He promptly responded by lifting two fingers forward. This was an unbelievable feat in the eyes of the underling. He criticized the underling for being such a weakling in an environment rich with spiritual energy. He countered with a heavy palm strike that shook the guy to his core. It sent him flying through the small forest like a speeding train. When he finally stopped hurtling through the terrain, his shirt had completely disintegrated. He got palmed so hard that his drip evaporated. Li Muxuan felt power coursing through him again. Although he had only recently regained his chi cultivation, it should be more than enough. Zhang Hao was forced to reconsider his position after witnessing the opponent's power. He tried to bluff his way out of the situation by proposing that if the ladies stopped cultivating, and they would let bygones be bygones. Li Muxuan simply responded with a taunt and an amused smile. Zhang Hao knew that he could not afford to let go of the moon's spiritual root, or it would be impossible to harvest and transfer it to him. He activated the 5 Thunder Talisman, and the raging lightning rushed toward the freshman. It crashed against the target with picture-perfect precision. But Li Muxuan was simply too overpowered. His body could withstand the lightning tribulation of the heavenly Tao itself, let alone this small thunder spell. Zhang Hao had to resort to bring out his hidden magic weapon, the Yin Needle, discreetly. He rushed into close combat position with his hidden trump card in hand. In an unpredictable twist, he threw it in a different direction with full force. The Yin Needle was heading towards the cultivating Han Ziqing. Li Muxuan would never let that slide, though. He intercepted the needle and easily crushed it with one hand. This only confirmed that Zhang Hao was behind his roommate's accident. He reassured the lady that he would be by her side as protection so she could continue cultivating. She resembled a goddess in how serenely she practiced the imparted cultivation technique. The spiritual energy she was absorbing came directly from the full moon above. Zhang Hao's expression darkened as he saw that the precious moon's spiritual root was undergoing a breakthrough. He refused to give up, so he summoned his main magic weapon, the blue saber. With the sinister blade in hand, he charged forward with the aim of disrupting the lady's cultivation advancement. He was even desperate enough to threaten her family. But unfortunately for him, he had just encountered a monster who could block his magic weapon with bare hands. Li Muxuan was beginning to this situation getting more troublesome. He summoned an incarnation of a giant hand and held the young man. They were in the same cultivation level, but he was now trapped helplessly in an awkward position. If it weren't for this guy, he would have been able to transplant Han Ziqing's roots and ascend to become the most promising cultivator in the world. Now that hope was gone, and he was forced to resort to a mysterious pill in his hands, all because of some unknown freshman. He took the powerful-looking pill and gulped it down with great effort. Inside Li Muxuan's gigantic fist incarnation, a sinister gathering of spiritual energy started. Zhang Hao forcefully broke through the Foundation establishment stage. He shattered the energy fist gripping him to smithereens and reveled in his newfound Foundation building realm power. The old ancestor has been suppressing his cultivation for the sake of the moon's spirit root transfer. Hearing that the Zhang family is practicing such demonic cultivation for the sake of spiritual root transplant did not sit right with Li Muxuan. Zhang Hao, with his re-established confidence, declared that he would eliminate everyone in his way and take Han Jiqing as a prisoner. Li Muxuan remained calm. Since unsealing the initial stage of his cultivation, he has not made a move. A foundation establishment opponent is just what he needed. The second part of the battle unfolded with another blade charge. And just like last time, the sword was met with two steady fingers as defense. He skillfully redirected the force of the saber to the side, rendering the young man open for a counterattack. Li Muxuan's fists seemed to have multiplied in size with the release of a solid punch coated with rich spiritual energy. It sent the young man flying upwards like a laughing rocket. His worldview is shattering as a man with a lower cultivation level than him beats him black and blue. Chi-refining cultivators who can materialize their spiritual energy are unheard of since the beginning. The unknown young man was already standing before him with the materialization of a legendary sword. With no choice and no moves left, he started to pull out the reputation of his Zhang family against those who crossed them. As he is the sole successor of the family, his ancestors at the legendary nascent soul realm would not let it go easily if he was harmed in any way. He desperately tried to use the name of his father and their power in the cultivation world. Li Muxuan could not care any less about this kid's family name. He held his sword made of pure spiritual energy and nonchalantly took aim. With a loud shout of indignation, the giant sword was swung down and the whole small forest was enveloped by a rich and powerful explosion of spiritual energy. When the smoke cleared, Zhang Xuan, the third elder of the Zhang family, came to the rescue of his junior. The desperate villain's spirits started to rise again as he saw his uncle bail him out in the nick of time. He tried to appeal to his uncle to eliminate the young man facing them and snatch away the lady. This old man is a bit wiser, though. He respectfully tried to amend the situation by asking for the matter to be let go. He wants to take away the girl, but Li Muxuan countered with the offer of letting the old man go and leaving the two right where they are. The third elder started to exert the pressure of the Zhang family with a threat. He slyly tried to negotiate while emphasizing the scope and power of the infamous family. Li Muxuan pretended to be interested as he mockingly considered taking a step back. He countered with the offer of him taking the lady away while the uncle cripples his nephew's cultivation. This was the final straw that broke the camel's back for the third elder. He summoned a terrifying item named the Tower of Infinity. From its miniature size, it transformed into a heavy tower, trying to flatten Li Muxuan. If this old man had just fought with him normally, he would have at least gone toe-to-toe. But this broken tower is no match against the body of a legitimate immortal king. The elder noticed it instantly and tried to flee as fast as possible, while calling to his nephew to do the same. The clueless Zhang Hao was confused as to why they were the ones fleeing from a single student. The third elder only sent a replica of the real artifact, but it was enough to assess the opponent. He knows that even if cultivation has strict levels, there are still all kinds of anomalies. Just like the black dog and hairless chicken that have been fighting their family for the longest time, being endlessly reincarnated. But the young man they just faced is far more terrifying. He may be only at the chi refinement stage, but his pressure can cause the elder to tremble. The Tower of Infinity exploded into pieces, and Li Muxuan emerged unscathed with his magical mirror in hand. The uncle and nephew duo finally gained distance, but the third elder felt the effects from the shattering of the Tower of Infinity replica connected to him. He suspects that the young man who drove them away is more than what meets the eye. Just like how the immortal of Ma family has become unstable after practicing the Void God technique. They also suspect that only the Ma family would dare openly oppose them, as the young man did. The third elder ordered his nephew to stop focusing on school and start dealing with the Han Jiqing situation. Even though they failed today, the patriarch seems to have placed some security measures on the girl over the years. His trust in the patriarch's methods is absolute. Zhang Hao's rotten spirits have been lifted after hearing this. With Han Jiqing being essential to them, extra precautions have been put into place. A sinister method known as the sealing spirit technique constricted the lady like a deadly serpent. Once Li Muxuan identified the wicked technique wrapping around her, his expression darkened. Back in his prime, he fought against beasts and spirits that would make an immortal tremble. One beast had a sinister ability to expand its energy into a chain-like system. Every single sect member on the battlefield who was touched by the chains immediately felt something taking hold of them. This technique is especially terrifying against an average person, but this is Immortal King Li Muxuan we're talking about. The most terrifying aspect of this insidious spell is its mysterious way of infiltration. But nothing in this world can remain mysterious in front of the Qin-Yan mirror. The magical mirror lit up and overwhelmed the incarnation of the spell in just a few seconds. After sleeping for 1,000,000 years, he realized that the war hasn't ended yet. Han Zhiqing finally woke up from her meditation. She has broken through the early stage of qi refining cultivation. She has seen and heard everything that transpired earlier. He told her to stay by his side since the Zhang family would undoubtedly make their move later. These words put a blush on the face of the beautiful young woman. She started imagining scenarios of how staying by this man's side would be. She liked what she was seeing, so she agreed to her newfound master. Waifu/disciple has been successfully unlocked. He still could not get over the resemblance of Han Zhiqing and her previous disciple. He remembered the lively young woman following him around and bugging him to go down the mountains. Unfortunately, she met a tragic fate in that same place she wanted to go to. Her only regret was not focusing enough on her cultivation and getting lazy. He's still not over that incident after 1,000,000 years. As her master and immortal king, he thought that he could keep everyone safe, regardless of their individual strength and cultivation. But he won't make that mistake this time. He wants Han Zhiqing to focus on her cultivation thoroughly, and then he would take her in as an official disciple. The lady's demeanor became sprightlier as she swore to work hard. The two left the wreckage of the fight in the small forest. A few meters from them, Zhang Hao's underling is still lying down in pain, calling out for help. The two strolled together in the dead of night, their footsteps echoing in the darkness. Despite their recent acquaintance, she felt an uncanny familiarity as if they had known each other for ages. He bestowed upon her an inexplicable sense of security, though it was evident that he had no shortage of admirers. However, she refused to let their journey come to an end. Caught up in her musings, she attempted to dispel these thoughts that consumed her. Suddenly, he detected the presence of another cultivator practicing the profound heaven technique just a few miles away. The energy tethering him to the practitioner pointed unerringly in one direction. Someone was on the verge of a breakthrough, and it certainly wasn't the duo from Wu Mountain. This person was about to achieve the foundation establishment stage, the first cultivator linked to him. And he knew precisely who it was. Yet, the connection was abruptly severed, the mirror counter resetting to 0. The breakthrough had failed. As he pondered over the incident, his phone abruptly rang, notifying him of his roommate's abnormal condition. Surprising the lady, he bid her farewell with a suddenness she hadn't anticipated. He departed, reminding her to heed his earlier words. Arriving at his destination, he was met with a panicked Yunfan. Helpless, the old man watched as the young man meditated within a barrier crackling with pure thunder. Blood streamed from his eyes, assaulted by malevolent creatures lurking within the thunder barrier. This dome shielded its host with thunder's spiritual root. Although his aura had reached the foundation establishment stage, the presence of these evil forces prevented him from taking the final step. Thunder tribulations and now these malevolent influences. Cultivation seemed confined by false Tao. In that case, he would aid by sealing off the entire world. Opening a dimensional rift, searing energy from his small world filled the room. The space resembled a nightmarish inferno as master and disciple alike felt the overwhelming spiritual energy. Within this apocalyptic small world, Li Muxuan and his roommate materialized. For someone with the thunder attribute, this was an ideal cultivation site. Li Muxuan yearned for the young man to awaken to newfound strength, becoming his trusted ally. Returning to the outside world, he reassured his subordinates that all was well, for he had taken care of matters. With things settling down, they finally found a moment to sit and savor some tea. He inquired about their current progress. Since the inception of their live broadcasts, thousands had embarked on cultivation journeys. However, only 300 managed to enter the qi refining stage. Even fewer possessed the talent to ascend further. It seemed most of these individuals had aptitudes inferior to old man He Yunfan. They needed to expand their recruitment efforts. He also saw updates on those making better progress. The wise old man had created a group chat for those at the mid-stage or higher level of qi refining, facilitating the exchange of ideas and questions. Unfortunately, the master and disciples were clueless about the inquiries as they were beginners themselves. Li Muxuan decided to allow them to figure it out for now, planning to select those with greater aptitude for special cultivation training in the future. He commended his disciples for their diligence but urged them to work harder. More people needed to join the world of cultivation. As they watched their master depart, the duo resolved to carry out his wishes to the best of their abilities. However, there was a problem. They were banned from live streaming. He Yunfan believed it wasn't a significant setback. They would exhaust their remaining funds on offline promotions. But the wise He Yunfen knew they should expand their horizons. As cultivators, they mustn't view the world through the lens of ordinary people. If they were under the guidance of an immortal master, they wouldn't require a retirement fund. We're back at Lujing University. Nowadays, geniuses like Han Jiqing and Luo Yang are both envied and targeted. It seems like their efforts can only uncover mediocre talent at most. At this rate, ascending further would be supremely difficult. He needs to take personal action to excavate potential geniuses to nurture. The Shenyang Mirror chimed in and pointed out that Lujing University has been drained of talent due to the Thunder and Moon spirit roots. The male dormitories are devoid of any potential, but the female dormitory hasn't been scanned. If he were still at his peak, his divine sense could cover the entire world and find every genius on the planet. Now, he can only go as far as 30 meters. He can only search for talents bit by bit. With his spiritual energy serving as platforms, he walks through the air freely. He activates his divine sense mid-air as he scouts the surroundings. Nothing can escape his scan within this limited range. He overhears conversations of people through thick walls. He even catches glimpses of more intimate moments that he should not have seen. Bro is using his powers like how some of you would. While busy scanning, the Shenyang Mirror notifies him of an abnormal spirit flow in the north. It is coming from a facility where spiritual energy is running wild. He flies to check out what is happening. He sees a scene where a young man named Ling Yang is being berated for fooling around with the university equipment. This guy is a special admissions student of the physics department at Lujing University. He returns to the laboratory with a defeated expression, but he sees Li Muxuan fiddling around with his tools. This guy is using modern circuits in an interesting way. Spiritual energy is clearly emanating from this high-tech looking piece. He wants to know more about this young man's study of subatomic particles. However, the defeated Ling Yang doesn't want to continue anymore, as he would probably just be laughed at. He firmly believes in science, but he can also feel a pervading energy in this world. He has been able to sense this strange energy since he was young. But no matter what method he uses, he just cannot prove the energy's existence. Failures and explosions became way too familiar to him. Even his peers look down on him for being reckless with his methods. He is beginning to think that he really is just crazy, but he can't help but want to conduct his studies. Li Muxuan teases the idea of other scientific systems in this world besides the current one. In the vastness and limitations of the universe, Ling Yang cannot answer until nothing has been proven. Li Muxuan conjures a green flame in his palms to ask if this can be explained by science. The young man tinkers with his lab equipment. He turns around and conjures a flame of his own. He uses his scientific know-how to recreate a simple spell. This man is too clever for his own good. Li Muxuan takes it up a notch by using a bit of spiritual energy. He makes the objects in the room float. Ling Yang remains skeptical, thinking that this is just a magic trick with threads. When he checks, he is shocked to discover that this is true levitation. This is enough to catch his attention. He transforms into a little kid hungry for knowledge under his new master. Knowledge has blind spots and science has unexplored areas. With a swipe of his finger on the young man's eyes, he gives him the ability to see the mysterious force around them. Nowadays, humans call it subatomic particles, but in its purest form in nature, it is called spiritual energy. Science and cultivation mashup sounds fire. Ling Yang's enthusiasm was renewed as he prepared the equipment in the lab. Now that he could see the spiritual energy, his experiments could continue. His specialized circuit pushed itself to the limit. The surrounding spiritual energy was being called into the laboratory. Something was beginning to form inside the chamber, something in a state between matter and energy. No wonder it had been impossible to prove before. Li Muxuan sensed that something was off and shielded the young man from behind. The concentration of energy was exceeding the explosion point. He conjured a massive hand to grab onto the chaotic chamber containing the energy. Finally, it exploded and destroyed the lab with its impact. The whole place was in shambles, and Ling Yang fell flat while coughing, worried if he had failed once again this time. But it seemed like he had succeeded this time around. Li Muxuan handed him a glowing stone, a literal crystallization of a miracle in science. This is a man-made spirit stone. Since the false Tao modified the rules of the earth, spirit stones and spirit medicines stopped growing in nature. The remaining few are controlled by a small number of cultivators. If modern technology can help them break through the false Tao, promoting cultivation for all mankind could be feasible. It could even help them break through the constraints of the planet. An unbelievably massive amount of energy is stored in such a small stone. If this can be produced and released steadily, it will cause a whole new energy revolution. He casually made the discovery of the millennium, gave a Chad. He celebrated in front of his professor for discovering forces beyond physics. However, he was met with even more criticism for spewing nonsense. They just kept on doubting this young man. He was ordered to pack up his things and vacate the lab immediately. He was finally being kicked out of school. His lively spirits were once again extinguished. But when he thought back to what he had just done, he brightened up once again. He tried to appeal to Li Muxuan for sponsorship so that he could continue his research. He even promised that all the research results would be surrendered to his new so-called boss. Li Muxuan considered this proposal seriously and asked how much the equipment would cost. A set of circuit board engraving systems, a scanning electron microscope, and many more lab equipment would cost them in the range of tens of millions. This figure sent a chill down the Immortal King's spine. For now, he simply gave this research nut, He Yunfan's contact information so that Ling Yang could learn more about spiritual energy. He promised Ling Yang that once he gained enough understanding, the equipment would be arranged. This man of science was bright-eyed and optimistic with his newfound boss and research mission. The next day, we were taken to the bustling area of the city. People went about their day normally, while a stand with sacks of food could be seen on the side of the street. Inside, He Yunfan called out to the public with his trusty megaphone. The line had built up quite a decent amount. They were giving out the cultivation manual with eggs for free, encouraging the public to give it a try for the sake of their health. I would personally take this deal in a heartbeat. This was what they meant by offline promotion. The cost of this publicity was too high. At this rate, they would use up their savings in no time. Even if Shou Guang was normally skeptical, he admitted that this cultivation method was good for the public. Things like this could not be rushed. Once people realized how good this is, they would have the initiative in their hands. Li Muxuan was back at his favorite spot, the highest point of Lujing University. He took in the view with the Qinyan mirror by his side. It seemed that Ling Yang was not only a gifted inventor but also had a rare affinity with an Earth-type spiritual root. He should be given priority for training. Unfortunately, the entire school had already been scanned, and there were no more potential geniuses in the area. It had become evident that the probability of talents appearing in Lujing University was quite high. As a well-known institution, the students who attended were naturally a cut above the rest academically, and spiritual roots had a direct correlation to intelligence. If they wanted to find more cultivation talents, they should start scouring other famous universities. An investigation of the ranked universities should prove fruitful. Out of the corner of his eye, something caught his attention. Han Jiqing was standing at the school gate. She was surrounded by men wearing dark suits in a parade of black cars. Being the daughter of the Han Group, the wealthiest family and company in Lujing, she attracted attention. Li Muxuan's phone rang once again. Han Jiqing informed him that her father had come to pick him up to visit her sick mother, but she felt that something was off. Even he felt that something was wrong as soon as he saw the gathering outside. It seemed that those people were still after the Lady's Moon's spiritual root. He needed to deal with this before leaving. Her expression brightened as she saw her master. Her roommate was still as annoying as ever. She introduced Li Muxuan as her master who had cured her chronic illness. This only served to make her father unreasonably angry and eager to go home. Looking at it with a spiritual eye, it was evident that her father and all the staff were under the sinister soul-capturing technique. With a confident smile, Li Muxuan decided to tag along. His will was imposed upon the Han Group leader, who agreed without a fuss. The annoying roommate was shocked at this development. Meanwhile, Han Jiqing's fanboys felt utterly defeated again. The ride inside the luxurious car was silent and unnerving. It was clear that Han Jiqing's father was under some kind of trance as he looked lifelessly into nowhere. If Li Muxuan lifted the soul-capturing technique now, it would only rattle the person who had cast it. It was better to end it once and for all. The parade of black cars arrived at the mountainous area of the Lujing suburbs. She couldn't help but ask her master what was happening with her oddly behaving father. The cars weren't taking them home, as they had said. He reached out his hands to comfort the lady and reassured her that her dad would be fine with him nearby. Finally, they started to slow down in front of an eerie abandoned mine. As soon as he got out of the vehicle, Li Muxuan noticed a few talismans on the gate. It was odd that this place, where a rich spiritual vein should exist, was so gloomy and desolate. Her father bizarrely ordered her to go inside the mine where her mom was. The guards also behaved mindlessly while holding their firearms in a haunting manner. Li Muxuan chimed in and presented himself to check out the situation inside first. This greatly angered the Han Group leader. He disregarded this reaction as the situation was just too ridiculous. Since they had arrived, there was no running away now. With a swipe of bright energy, he dispelled the soul-catching technique. Inside the mine were the uncle and nephew duo of the Zhang family. They intended to sacrifice their relationship with the insignificant Han family for the Mu's spiritual root that appeared once in 10,000 years. They couldn't afford to fail right here, or the patriarch wouldn't show mercy. Looking at the cameras they had set up, the person they feared had appeared. The haunting smile of the young man was frightening. They'd only noticed that the soul-catching technique had been broken. The third elder tried to convince himself that Li Muxuan showing up was a good thing. Amidst the sinister mind, he called out to the duo hiding somewhere. The elder emanated a menacing aura as he emerged from the depths. He opened with his technique, the reversal of heaven on earth. The ground shook, and the terrain opened. The area outside was being affected by the impact. Han Jiqing was certain that her master would be just fine. It seemed that the duo had prepared a formation that absorbed spiritual energy. The elder prided himself and his family on suppressing spiritual veins like this all over the world for thousands of years, just like their practice of killing cultivators. This formation had already sucked the life out of the spiritual vein. If you reversed the formation, it would immediately suck Li Muxuan's spiritual energy until it couldn't anymore. Li Muxuan just smiled mockingly at this villain's speech. The massive formation began to do its job effectively, but something was off. The nephew and uncle duo couldn't believe that the monster in front of them seemed to have an infinite amount of spiritual energy. To salvage the situation, the elder conjured up a magic weapon. This thing had been sealed for thousands of years. With its strength, it could put everyone nearby and the entire Lujing city in danger. But he deemed Li Muxuan far more dangerous. He threw the wooden sealed artifact forward. It landed in the mine and started to emanate a sinister aura. A shadow-like figure began to twist and turn, eventually coalescing into a monstrous form with multiple eyes all over. He identified it as a trapped mountain spirit beast. These beasts were originally the guardians of spiritual veins that fell into a frenzy after the vein was damaged. It took the form of a twisted fox and locked onto Li Muxuan, charging at him with fatal intent. Just as the two were about to clash, the third elder intended to seal the two monsters together. While the smug smile was still visible on his face, the third elder seized the opportunity and executed the hand signs to seal the opponents. However, as he was about to finish, the beast started to burst from the inside. This was beyond the expectations of the Zhang duo. The beast was obliterated, and Li Muxuan stood nonchalantly. Even immortals of the Ma family weren't capable of this feat. The third elder panicked and shook in his boots. He tried to recover and ask for forgiveness in the name of the Zhang family, promising to let the matter go. But these fools didn't have the qualifications to make a deal with an immortal king. He resorted to an intimidation tactic after the apology failed. Li Muxuan had fought and killed countless enemies. He had never been afraid of anyone, and a mere Zhang family certainly would make him start. The duo had no choice but to brace themselves and fight from this point on. However, Jian Hao had a disposable space artifact, the Bamboo 2. It could only transport a single person, so he took the chance and left his uncle behind. This guy really left his uncle behind to die. That's a new low. Calling his nephew a coward, he rushed towards the immortal with the resolve to die. He concentrated all his strength, but he was met by a cuddly-looking little creature. In a short time they were in combat. Li Muxuan tamed the deformed beast. He also summoned an incarnation of a giant hand made of pure energy. It crushed the third elder with insurmountable force. The cuddly little beast channeled its inner monstrosity and transformed back into its dark form. This time, it targeted the third elder. Seeing this monster was like a death sentence for the old man. Just as he had intended to deal with Li Muxuan, he was drained of every drop of spiritual energy in his body. Now he was just a lifeless husk. Old man needs some protein in his life. Li Muxuan performed a soul-searching technique on the corpse of the third elder. He witnessed the inhumane treatment of cultivators locked up in harsh conditions and the executions of unauthorized cultivators. As expected, these aristocratic families were ruthless. This family is basically Illuminati. As soon as he reached the part of the third elder's memory where he met the Great One, a spell began to activate. Even the tiny beast sensed it. Li Muxuan's divine sense was restricted. It was a pity, as he had come close to finding out who was behind all of this. The tiny and adorable beast felt a deep bond with Li Muxuan. After being sealed for so many years, Li Muxuan intended to send this little guy to a safe place. He tore open a rift in space and sent the beast to the apocalyptic small world. Instead of freaking out, the beast's eyes glimmered with joy. It absorbed as much spiritual energy as it could, to the point of overeating. Li Muxuan had to remind the beast to absorb it gradually. He left the mines where the entire Hun group was waiting. Although Hun Jiqing was concerned about his minor injuries, he reassured her that Zhang Xian had been dealt with, but Zhang Hao had escaped by luck. The leader of the Hun group wanted to have a word with him. He knew it would be about Hun Jiqing. The leader revealed that everything he had was owed to the Zhang family. So now, he dared to ask Li Muxuan if he was also interested in his daughter's physique. Li Muxuan explained that he had a connection with Hun Jiqing, which was why he was helping her. The man kneeled in front of him, offering the entirety of the Hun group for his daughter's safety. These straightforward people were the kind that Li Muxuan liked. He realized that they needed funds for spiritual stone research and for further spreading the cultivation technique. Money was truly a necessity in modern times and in every period he had been in. He gave Hun Jiqing's father the address and information of He Yun Fund to contact and assist with the financial situation. He vowed never to let his new master down. We just secured an infinite amount of cash, boys. Meanwhile, at the Zhang family's holy land, the atmosphere was intense. Zhang Hao was being scolded by his father, Zhang Dongji, the current head of the family, for his failures. Bro has that dictator drip. It looks kind of fire though. His father sentenced him to face the walls of the black prison for half a year. Zhang Hao tried to argue that it was all his third uncle's fault, but his father was truly strict. Zhang Dongji consulted with a hooded figure about the matter. It appeared that the Zhang family ancestor and the immortal of the Ma family were trapped in a ruin for the time being. If Zhang Hao's reports were true, it was possible that the central figure behind these incidents came from the other side. However, the channel was blocked, making it impossible for anyone to infiltrate the world. Since the enemy wanted to promote cultivation techniques and find suitable seeds, they could simply eliminate the seeds in advance. This mysterious consultant provided the family head with a new direction they could pursue. The more people who cultivated, the better it was for him. It just so happened that they could be sacrificed to his sole banner. A few days later, we are now at an extravagant and luxurious mansion. Ling Yang was outside, directing the staff and handling his equipment. Xiao Guang and his master reveled at the sight of the unbelievable exterior of the mansion. It was a golden property that money alone couldn't buy. He Yun Fun continued to preach about not being attached to worldly possessions, but just a few moments ago, he was gleefully chatting with a female believer. He blushed and promptly changed the subject. The leader of the Hun group entered and politely greeted the elder. He arranged everything regarding this new place. If they needed anything in the future, they could just relay it to the beautiful secretary Lu Xiaoyan. Li Muxuan was satisfied that he had solved every financial problem they had in one move. The next step was to mass-produce Ling Yang's spirit stones as fast as possible to accelerate everyone's cultivation. His perfect qi refining stage was not nearly enough at the moment. The false heavenly Tao had been actively accelerating its actions because of its appearance. He could deal with countless foundation establishment practitioners with no sweat. But a strong person at the golden core stage could prove to be troublesome. Now, there were 3 foundation establishment practitioners under his method. The addition of 2 more people in this realm confused him. It was unlikely to be Hun Jiqing since breaking through the next realm was simply too hard. Even if her route was superior to the Thunder spiritual route, it was still impossible for her to catch up in a limited time. Things were starting to get interesting for the Immortal King. This might just be his opportunity to speed up his own cultivation. So, he ordered the Qinyan mirror to lock onto the location of the 2 mysterious additions to his disciples. It quickly complied and calculated the location of the cultivators. It showed the image of an ordinary-looking young man wearing glasses, and his current location was not that far from Li Muxuan. This young man was even in the same city. He hopped off the rooftop to come for the kid. In the middle of the city, a lone figure was flying amidst the high-rise buildings. He had been silently cultivating for 20 years, stuck at the perfect qi refining stage. His bottleneck was removed thanks to a certain old Taoist streaming online. The Xuanxin qi refining technique was truly extraordinary. He cried tears of joy because from now on, he didn't have to pretend to be a nerd anymore. He hailed himself as the protagonist of the world. Lo bro thinks he's that guy. Even the people on the ground were starting to notice the young man floating midair. They also saw that another figure was coming over swiftly. He was stepping on a flying sword that he thrust towards the young man. Just as high as he had felt earlier, that's how low he was feeling now as he quickly crashed down from midair. His life had just begun, but coming out of being low-key and being arrogant was his literal downfall. The masked man riding a flying sword instantly escaped the scene after completing his mission. At that moment, Li Muxuan finally arrived at the location. All he could see was the lifeless young man who had reached Foundation Establishment. It seemed like he was one step too late, and the Eliminator organization acted fast. He realized that if this had happened, there was a high likelihood that the other practitioner he had sensed earlier was in danger too. He didn't waste a second. This was a race against the Eliminator organization. In the dark of the night, a hooded and masked figure was chasing a woman. Both of them were capable of flight. The woman was finally cornered. She tried to appeal using the agreement of the 7 clans and the scattered cultivators. But times had changed, and the masked figure measured her status as an unregistered cultivator with a power value of 100. It seemed like he was under the mandate to purge unregistered cultivators. The Zhang family had become too overbearing. The masked figure only wanted to make this woman a sacrifice to please his soul master. Screams of pain echoed in the dark alleyway. The woman's spiritual energy was slowly being stripped away from her. She tried to beg not to be soul-sucked just to refine the soul banner. But the masked man explained that he only saw her as experience points. She was even lucky to be a part of the soul banner and not the cultivator's dungeon. Filled with rage and hopelessness, she cursed this devil to face heavenly retribution. That's when a lightning-fast light sneaked up behind the masked figure. He reacted quickly and defended himself with his sword, but even the excess spiritual energy was enough to destroy his mask. Li Muxuan casually walked into the dark alleyway with his hands in his pockets. The masked man took this entrance as just another addition to his harvest. He took out his scanner as it was behaving oddly. He looked at the indication of error as the scan had an infinite value of spiritual energy. It eventually broke down under the heavy load. He threw it away and disregarded the readings, as the young man in front of him was clearly just a chi-refining cultivator. "You should have trusted your gadget, bro." The woman had passed out due to the stress of the soul suck. With a serious expression, Li Muxuan asked him if he had also killed the young man earlier. This man looked guilty as hell, and he was proud of it. He playfully activated his soul orb and pointed at the trapped souls inside. Living in a civilized world, Li Muxuan had almost forgotten that the law of the jungle still exists. The man known as Lord Yi promised Li Muxuan a comfortable death. He hadn't felt this way in a long time. He had almost forgotten how to get angry. The spiritual pressure he was emitting started to surge wildly. As Lord Yi's mask completely disintegrated, he realized just how badly he had messed up. He received a thunderous slap on the face. That's how you open a fight. Li Muxuan was not messing around anymore. Lord Yi was planted deep into the brick wall as he tried to ask who this man in front of him was. But Li Muxuan was already gearing up for another strike, with no more words to speak. Lord Yi tried to fly out in a panic, but his trajectory was instantly cut off. His throat was firmly grabbed as Li Muxuan executed a brutal choke slam. He lifted the guy up as if he were a piece of garbage. He took the soul orb and shattered it into 1,000 tiny pieces. As the orb fragmented, Lord Yi's body disintegrated. He got choked so hard that he turned into dust. That's brutal. The woman woke up and saw what had just happened. She got on her knees to thank the senior in front of her for saving her life. She introduced herself as Cheng Yue from the Self-Cultivator Alliance. This piqued Li Muxuan's interest. He remembered the memories of the Third Elder regarding these self-cultivators. Even though their situation was quite bad, they could be used to understand the current state of cultivation. He offered his assistance and had some questions to ask. A few moments later, they were back at the luxurious mansion. Cheng Yue's confusion and curiosity deepened at the sight of this place. The master and disciple duo welcomed their immortal master and presented the idea of touring the new stronghold. But Li Muxuan had something to discuss with his guest, so they were escorted to the reception hall. She recognized these two as the master and disciple pair from Wu Mountain. She was starting to connect the dots regarding the cultivation technique and the mysterious man. He asked her if she had used the Shuan Shin Qi refining technique to break through to her current level. She was surprised that he got it right. Her talent was mediocre, and she didn't have any innate spiritual roots. After 20 years of cultivation, she had nothing to show for it. That was until she watched the live broadcasts and switched to the new cultivation technique. He asked her if this technique had become widespread among the self-cultivators. In the extravagant reception room, everyone was seated and questioning Cheng Yue. She explained that not many people had adapted to the newly publicized cultivation technique. They mostly practiced incomplete cultivation methods. They didn't want to risk losing control by switching to a different method. Given her low level to begin with, she didn't hesitate and took the gamble. She didn't expect to break through to Foundation establishment in such a short time. Li Muxuan asked her to hand him the cultivation technique she had practiced. Respectfully, she complied and handed him the scroll. As he read through the text, Li Muxuan felt a sense of déjà vu. He tasked the Xinyan mirror to analyze the technique. It appeared that it had previously appeared in the Xuanyan continent. It was an Earth-level technique called the Big Palm Green Technique, authored by Zhang Ling Su. However, it had been tampered with. Not only was it restrained, but it was also easy to lose control and get possessed using this method. The Qinyan mirror asked whether it should complete the technique or not. This came as a huge shock to Cheng Yue. Li Muxuan decided not to complete the technique for now. If he completed the self-cultivator's techniques, it would no longer be enticed to switch to his method. Cheng Yue became incredibly excited at the prospect of her previous technique being completed. But Li Muxuan viewed this Earth-level technique as inferior, so there was no need to waste time on it. She couldn't believe the words coming out of this man's mouth. The cultivation techniques in the immortal world were divided into 4 levels: heaven, earth, mysterious, and yellow. Respectfully, she asked what level the Xuan Qi refining technique belonged to. When he created it to resist evil spirits from beyond, he didn't bother ranking it. However, it could be considered an immortal technique for moral cultivation. Hearing the words immortal technique was the finishing blow to Cheng Yue's psyche. She realized she was out of her depth. If someone as mediocre as her could cultivate at such an unbelievably fast pace, then there was no doubt in her mind that it was truly an immortal technique. She got on her knees and humbly asked Li Muxuan for a spot by his side as a disciple. Li Muxuan nonchalantly stared at her and considered the idea. Inside, she was shaking, although she was being hasty. A once-in-a-lifetime opportunity like this shouldn't be missed. Li Muxuan wasn't opposed to the idea of taking her in as a disciple. However, she had to help him with something first to be considered an external disciple. This lifted Cheng Yue's spirits, as she was eager to seize this chance. She needed to arrange a meeting between Li Muxuan and the person in charge of the Self-Cultivator Alliance. However, the alliance leader was not available, and the 5 elders were in charge. On top of that, the Zhang family had dispatched the Eliminators to eradicate them. During such a sensitive period, it might be hard to arrange a meeting without proof that he wasn't a member of the 7 clans. This proved to be troublesome, as concrete proof was needed. However, Li Muxuan remembered one thing that should still be where he left it. He invited Cheng Yue to follow him, and she promptly complied. They arrived outside the abandoned mine from a few days ago. Inside, he showed her the corpse of a person named Zhang Xian, wondering if this would be enough as proof. At the sight of the corpse, she fell to her knees. It wasn't out of terror, but pure happiness. This 3rd elder was the person the Alliance hated the most. He shed the blood of countless self-cultivators, including Cheng Yue's parents. Using this villain's remains as a token would surely secure a meeting with Elder Wu. She took the corpse, and Li Muxuan would wait for the good news. In an unknown cultivator dungeon, countless practitioners were being kept without rhyme or reason. A familiar masked figure oversaw these illegally detained cultivators. He opened the jail cells and released everyone. The prisoners breathed a sigh of relief as they were finally being set free. They followed the masked figure through a gate. What greeted them on the other side was a horrifying sight. It was the 1,000-soul banner. They were using the souls of self-cultivators as sacrifices. Panic set in as they were promised freedom, not this. The masked figure merely stated that they would be released from the dungeon, but didn't say he would let them go. The grim incarnations of the 1,000-soul banner successfully locked onto the panicking practitioners. Several days later, we found ourselves in a dimly lit cave. Cheng Yue stood before the elder of the Alliance, anxious and eager to report an important matter. She was chastised for calling on the elders during such turbulent times. But she insisted that she had crucial information to share with the Alliance elders. One elder was reluctant to entertain her, warning her of the consequences if she wasted their time. She informed them that despite her mediocre talent, she had broken through the foundation establishment stage using the Xuan Qi refining technique. To their surprise, the elders confirmed that she was telling the truth. One elder became defensive, questioning his judgment. However, Cheng Yue humbly got to remain objective. The elders immediately denied her request for an audience with Li Muxuan. They were suspicious of the rise of this new cultivation technique, deeming it too good to be true. They believed it might be another trap set up by the Zhang family to cripple their cultivation. Due to their past trust in the detestable family, they were cautious in their current state. Even Cheng Yue's own parents had fallen victim to their wicked schemes. Nevertheless, she was willing to stake her own life to vouch for Li Muxuan. The elders remained hesitant, as the life of a single cultivator was incomparable to the countless lives of self-cultivators in the Alliance. Dismissed by the elders, Cheng Yue still had an item that could potentially sway their decision. She presented the corpse of Zhang Xian and asked if the elders recognized the remains. The elders rose in anger and surprise at the sight of their tormentor's corpse. She informed them that this man was killed by her so-called senior, providing convincing proof. Curiosity arose as to who this senior was, unafraid of the Zhang family's retribution for killing the third elder. A familiar-looking old man asked if the mentioned senior was a long-haired young man from Lujing. She confirmed that indeed he was. This elder knew Li Muxuan from their brief encounter when he caught the young man fighting against a heavenly tribulation. She affirmed that the disciples of Wu Mountain were indeed the senior's disciples. The matter concerned their survival, prompting the elder to present himself for a personal meeting with Li Muxuan. With that resolution, the meeting concluded. The elder's granddaughter rushed to Cheng Yue's side, indicating a close bond between the two. A few days later, the mansion retained its luxurious atmosphere. Inside, the laboratory operations were in full swing, producing spiritual stones. Ling Yang pestered Xiao Guan to try one of his new inventions, a prototype of the Foundation Establishment pill. However, Xiao Guan refused, recalling the time he spent 3 days in the toilet after trying one of Ling Yang's previous inventions. He sought his master's help in the matter. Outside the gates, Cheng Yue, the elder, and his granddaughter finally arrived. The elder immediately sensed the extraordinary phenomenon surrounding the mansion. As the gates opened, they were welcomed by He Yunfeng. He guided them through the mansion's facilities, leaving the elder in awe when he witnessed the mass production of precious spirit stones. They also encountered a little beast indulging in the products. The elder identified it as a yellow riding spirit beast. Establishing an exceptional cultivation method, utilizing modern technology for spirit stone production, and keeping spirit beasts as pets. These were feats even the Zhang family couldn't match. Finally, Li Muxuan arrived, and everyone greeted him with utmost respect. Naturally, everyone gravitated towards him. Ling Yang seemed to have created a modern version of an alchemy furnace, requiring only the necessary ingredients. Amidst their excitement, they momentarily forgot about the presence of their guests. However, as Li Muxuan intended to deepen his cooperation with the alliance, it seemed acceptable. Cheng Yue formally introduced Elder Ji from the Self-Cultivator Alliance, and Li Muxuan recognized the old man's aura. To exhibit hospitality, they served tea to the elder in the luxurious reception hall. After cultivating for his entire life, the elder was finally starting to broaden his horizons in this place. Li Muxuan insisted that in this small world, there was nothing extraordinary. Therefore, they must approach everything with a calm mind. Elder Ji was convinced by his sincerity, but he still had some doubts that he wanted to clarify. He questioned why Li Muxuan would spread such a precious cultivation technique to everyone in the world. Li Muxuan simply explained that he was doing it to pave the way for future generations and lead them forward. Hearing the authenticity in the young man's voice silenced the elder. He apologized and praised Li Muxuan's broad-mindedness. His only concern was whether the cultivation technique had any drawbacks. They had a troubled past with cultivation methods from the Zhang family to the point where they had no choice but to use inferior techniques. If there were any drawbacks to the Shuan Xinqi refining technique, it would be that it was too easy to cultivate, leading to an unstable state of mind and an inability to enter the realm of immortality. The two self-cultivators in the room were taken aback by this ridiculous answer. Elder Ji asked if he could reach the Nascent Soul realm by continuing with his current technique. However, he had already been lucky enough to reach the Golden Core stage with an incomplete Great Zhang script. What he had formed was not a Golden Core but a Void Core. Li Muxuan instantly saw through him like an open book. If it meant breaking free from the Zhang family, Elder Ji was willing to try switching cultivation techniques. He entrusted his granddaughter to Cheng Yue for the time being and covered his hand with spiritual energy. He struck his own golden core, surprising everyone present. His core shattered, and his cultivation was destroyed along with it. He reassured everyone that he was fine. Li Muxuan praised his determination and offered his assistance. He directly imparted the cultivation method to Elder Ji's consciousness. Half a month later, the granddaughter began to worry about her grandfather's well-being. That's when two cultivators leisurely made their way to the mansion and identified the little girl as the granddaughter of Elder Ji. Cheng Yue noticed the presence and immediately prepared for a fight. He instructed the little girl to seek help from the Immortal Master as she rushed towards the intruders. One of the intruders shamelessly targeted the little girl, demanding to know where her grandfather was. When she refused to confess anything to these villains, the man readied his hands for a strike. But He Yunfeng's blade swiftly came to her aid. He faced the intruder alongside Xiao Guan. The intruder recognized this duo from their live streams and reveled in the discovery of their lair. Their Lord Hound would reward them handsomely for capturing so many sacrifices in one place. These intruders were Zhang family members at the Foundation establishment stage, so they had to be careful. The two already knew that these intruders would likely overpower them at their current level, but the Immortal Master was observing from the rooftop, so they had to fight even if they got injured. Li Muxuan overheard this shameless duo chatting amongst themselves. They charged at the same time. He Yunfeng used his blade to attack from above, while Xiao Guang aimed at the intruder's crotch. They're going for the classic combination. The man jumped in terror as the duo's combo seemed effective. Li Muxuan was infuriated by the shamelessness of these cultivators. He didn't even want to extract their souls. He just wanted to send them straight to hell. The intruder drew his weapon, releasing a noxious gas into the air. The duo watched as the intruder unleashed his technique, realizing that if the Immortal Master didn't intervene, they would be in serious trouble. The intruder swung his weapon, aiming to strike down those below. Li Muxuan calmly executed his immortal law, Sever, causing the slash to dissipate into nothingness. He strolled into the garden area as if taking a leisurely walk. Cheng Yue and He Yunfeng rushed to his side, but he assured them that he would handle the situation. The other intruder noticed that Li Muxuan had just used their Zhang family's core talisman technique. The Qinyan mirror grew tired of the constant talk about the Zhang family. The broken talismans researched by Zhang Lingsu were low-class, mere treasures for mortals. Everyone was bewildered to see the artifact talking back. The Qinyan mirror simply disdained communicating with ordinary people. The two intruders exchanged meaningful glances as they summoned a plethora of talismans. The talismans burned brightly, transforming the flame owls. However, the yellow riding spirit beast swiftly jumped into action, devouring the flame owls as if they were tasty snacks. Upon witnessing the subdued guardian spirit of the mountain, the intruders finally realized that Li Muxuan was the one who killed the third elder. Inside the mansion, a powerful surge of spiritual energy emanated. The Foundation establishment cultivators under Li Muxuan's method had reached 4, and the old man finally emerged from seclusion. Elder Ji gracefully flew and landed on the battlefield, greeted with congratulations from his disciples. His granddaughter was relieved to see her grandpa. He respectfully bowed to Li Muxuan, expressing his desire to deal with the intruders personally. They scanned the elder and discovered that he had dropped down to the Foundation establishment stage with a spiritual energy level of 500. They saw this as a great opportunity, believing that anyone below the Golden Core stage was no match for them. They respectfully appealed to Li Muxuan, requesting that he not get involved in the factional dispute. Li Muxuan agreed to let the old man handle the intruders. Even a yellow-riding spirit beast would not participate. The intruders believed they had struck a jackpot with this arrangement. Elder Ji summoned a talisman in front of him. The intruder mocked him for using a technique that originated from their Zhang family. Observing the reckless use of talismans, Elder Ji channeled his dark spiritual energy into his finger, forming the law of breaking talismans in the shape of dark lightning. Elder Ji's technique manifested an incarnation of a green beast, even visible to the untrained eyes of the Wuhu Mountain duo, indicating its incredible strength. The green beast pounced on the two intruders, driving them into the ground. Their injuries were fatal, their bodies wrecked. They couldn't believe they had failed to neutralize something they were familiar with. As they looked at Li Muxuan leisurely standing, they finally realized that Old Man Ji had restarted his cultivation using the Shuan Qin Qi refining technique. He was no longer bound by the method of breaking talismans. One of the intruders stealthily took out a yin needle, intending to relay this crucial information to the patriarch. He threw the needle as a distraction and flew in the opposite direction. Elder Ji caught the needle and crushed it with his bare hands. Summoning his personal artifact, the Measured Mountain Ruler, he'd fired it with flawless precision at the fleeing intruder. The ruler stabbed through the man, ending his life as he plummeted from the sky and crashed to the ground. Imagine dying from being stabbed by a ruler. The bodies of the two intruders were laid down in the ground. Elder Ji picked up the soul orb containing the souls of the self-cultivators who fell victim to them. He shattered the orb to give them their final rest. Leng Yan wanted to take the corpses of the intruders, and Li Muxuan complied, but he warned the research nut not to become too obsessed with the mysteries of the human body. He swore to stick to his principles with these specimens. After restarting his cultivation, Elder Ji started to feel as if he was no longer bound by heaven and earth. With this method, he began to feel a faint connection with Li Muxuan's aura. His perception was correct, as this was the same foundational cultivation technique that the Immortal King used back then. To everyone's surprise, he opened his chaotic small world. The endless amount of spiritual energy was incomprehensible to normal cultivators. Li Muxuan explained that he had to channel the world's growing spiritual energy strain towards his own world, and now it was starting to reach its limits. This is why he needed more cultivators to cultivate his method and share the burden. Elder Ji realized that he had vastly underestimated the situation and the young man in front of him. He finally recognized that Li Muxuan was a true immortal surpassing the aristocratic families. He answered Elder Ji's final concern. If they failed to contain the world's spiritual energy, it would spell the end for everyone. The elder was determined to share this burden and would try to convince the entire Self-Cultivator Alliance to do the same. Back in the dimly lit cave, every surviving member of the Alliance, along with the elders, had gathered. Elder Ji formally introduced Li Muxuan as his senior, informing them that he had restarted his cultivation and was no longer bound by the Zhang family. The other elders found this announcement ridiculous, especially considering that Li Muxuan was only at the qi refining stage now. Chaos immediately ensued. Elder Ji tried to remind everyone that a true and free rebirth could only be achieved if they started from scratch. The other elders refused to accept this ridiculous farce any longer. Even the members began to unite in rejecting the proposal of a new beginning. Since the elders had a long history of nearly 100 years together, one elder proposed that if Li Muxuan could withstand his attacks for 10 breaths, then they would reconsider. These were the exact words that Li Muxuan used to say to those who challenged him. It seemed like the tables had turned. He accepted the condition, and the members berated him for his arrogance. The skeptical elder proceeded to prepare his strike. In his eyes, fist, and foot were the truth. Even after being given the chance to withdraw, Li Muxuan just wanted to get this over with. The elder charged with a heavy golden aura, but his punch was met with the young man's bare hands. He warned the elder to take this seriously at full strength or he wouldn't be affected even after 100 breaths. The members tried to convince themselves that the elder had only held back his strength. Although the elder had only used 30% of his power, it wasn't weak by any means. He wasn't going to underestimate the young man any longer. He summoned and warned Li Muxuan to be careful with his next strike. With his fist technique, he wouldn't hold back anymore. He charged in at a blinding speed, using the Liang clan's 13 strikes that had killed 2 elders from the Zhang family in the past. But even that formidable fist was met with Li Muxuan's own casual punch. Even though the first strike was neutralized, the elder had a lot more in store. They flew all over the cave, exchanging intense blows. Li Muxuan's immortal body started to crack and leak spiritual energy. The other members noticed this as well. He praised the elder's martial arts, but the elder recognized that this young man easily nullified his technique. He lectured the old man regarding the nature of the great Tao, and the elder responded by initiating his final strike. An incarnation of a dragon appeared as it coiled around the elder's fist. Dealing with this golden core elder and crossing 2 realms ahead was proving to be a bit tough. He summoned the Xinyan mirror to ask how long he could suppress his current state if he forcefully lifted his restrictions. It seemed he could safely maintain it for about 10 breaths. With a confident smile, he entered the Foundation establishment stage in an instant. The members of the Alliance had never seen anything like this before. Li Muxuan walked with the incarnation of an ethereal savage beast. The elder rushed with his dragon. The 2 magnificent monstrosities went head-to-head in a battle of pure strength. In a span of a few seconds, the 2 of them exchanged countless blows. Their beastly incarnations wrestled in the limited space of the cave. Using his superior senses, he found an opening in the old man's defenses. With a resounding punch, the elder was sent flying away. Another elder went to his side to ensure that he was all right. After taking that monstrous punch, he was going to need some rest to recover. The unreasonable elder refused to acknowledge Elder Leon's defeat. He summoned an array of talismans that started to form the figure of a majestic peacock. This was the incarnation talisman left behind by the Alliance leader. Elder Ji stepped in to interfere, as this was not part of the agreement. The stubborn elder wanted to test the young man's power himself. If he could deal with the leader's incarnation talisman, then they would be convinced. Li Muxuan thought that this peacock looked awfully familiar. It looked like the descendant of that featherless chicken. The peacock emanated a resplendent and colorful glow as it flew towards its target. Elder Tang was completely disregarding Elder J's face by using a trump card like this. The Alliance leader has a special identity. It's a spirit that takes on the incarnation of a peacock. The Alliance members united in the belief that this young man would not survive this strike at all. This incarnation symbol can deliver a full-power strike equivalent to that of a nascent soul cultivator. Elder Ji implored the stubborn elder to stop, as Li Muxuan is no ordinary man. However, once this incarnation was unleashed, it became uncontrollable. Elder Ji summoned his personal artifact to halt the peacock. But his Measure Mountain ruler was pecked and destroyed like an ordinary piece of wood. This is the level of the nascent soul stage. Elder Ji tried to warn Li Muxuan about the strength of the impending attack, but the young man remained calm, focusing on his spirit tool. If this were a nascent soul cultivator, he would be unable to withstand it. But this is just a symbol. The Qinyan mirror finally finished setting up the formation. In the middle of the cave, a massive magic circle appeared directly below the peacock incarnation. It emitted a massive amount of restrictive energy that took hold of the bird. The symbol tried to break free, expending massive amounts of energy. Everyone watching had no clue how this massive formation was set up, but a formation of this size undoubtedly requires massive amounts of spiritual stones to maintain. With insufficient power, the peacock began to escape the formation's grasp. Upon seeing this development, Li Muxuan simply took out his mountainous reserves of man-made spirit stones. The members were wide-eyed with shock, as even the great families would not have this many spirit stones readily available. The female cultivators who were watching quickly changed their attitudes and praised Li Muxuan. They were being convinced to give the new cultivation method a look. The spirit stones that he summoned were all flawed products that quickly dissipated. However, for a formation, he could just burn them all. Such a waste of precious resources was hard to watch from the financially strained self-cultivators. Free-to-play players watching pay to win monsters. The peacock incarnation began to weaken amid the powerful formation. It was suppressed so forcefully that it started to revert to being a chick. With a firm grasp, Li Muxuan crushed the chick with one hand. The audience witnessed the power of unlimited resources. The elders were speechless at the sight of Li Muxuan, while Elder Ji reminded them of the agreement. The scrappy Elder Lian was willing to admit defeat after exchanging blows. Although Elder Tang would not back down from his word, he was afraid to start from scratch again due to his old age. If he could not quickly return to the Golden Core stage, his life would be in danger. The other elders agreed with this sentiment. With only around 10 years left on their lifespans, they didn't have the time to rebuild themselves. The rest of the members were also afraid to restart. Elder Ji couldn't help but become frustrated at their ignorance or failing to appreciate the immortal fate in front of them. Suddenly, the ceiling of the cavern was destroyed from the outside. They saw a woman fall from the hole. She was wearing the Zhang family uniform and stabbed an alliance member on her way down. The exterminators had finally infiltrated the hidden alliance base despite the protective formations. The exterminators intended to capture every single soul present there. The members were quick to blame Elder Ji and Li Muxuan for the sudden infiltration of their hideout. This was just yet another hassle for the Immortal King. The elders demanded an explanation for this turn of events. Elder Ji knew that it was unlikely that they had been tracked, but that didn't stop Elder Tang from conjuring his divine whip. It twisted and turned, aiming for the exterminator. However, she stood confidently because she did not come alone. The fearsome thousand-soul banner appeared in the middle of the cavern, accompanied by hooded figures. She excitedly welcomed the descent of her Lord Soul Envoy. The exterminator's Soul Envoy was pleased with the number of cultivators hiding in this underground base. These people would be the perfect sacrifice. The Alliance members threw curses at the vile nature of this half-step nascent soul monster. They were starting to lose hope in the face of such an insurmountable enemy. Li Muxuan contemplated in one corner. This half-step nascent soul guy was incredibly troublesome. Today, this envoy intended to end the era of self-cultivators, but the elders would not go down without a fight. He threatened the envoy that their leader would seek justice from the Zhang family when he came out of seclusion. But the envoy was not afraid of these empty words, as that featherless chicken was trapped in a forbidden land. He believed that no one could stop him from doing as he pleased from there on out. Elder Tang tried to brandish his whip against the envoy out of anger and frustration. But the gap between them was just too wide to be fully understood. Today, the envoy wanted to open the eyes of these underground rats. With Elder Tang's whip destroyed, he suffered severe backlash. He was witnessing the downfall of his beloved alliance in real time as the envoy ordered his subordinates to kill everyone. Men, women, young, and old. No one would be left alive. They quickly complied and flew in every direction, targeting different individuals. With stabs of blades and the power of spells, no one would be spared. Some alliance members tried to defend themselves with symbol arts, but even their most powerful techniques were easily countered by the Zhang family. One by one, the self-cultivators started to fall. Li Muxuan quietly contemplated in a corner as an exterminator tried to take a shot at him. He countered with a relaxed punch, shattering the mask and face of the attacker. Seeing the cracks in his body, he realized that the balance in his small world was in a delicate state. Using spiritual power recklessly could be catastrophic. If the balance went awry, it might tear his body apart.